back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
When you put Jim Brown in the same movie with Lawrence Taylor and Dennis Quaid and Al Pacino.
Yeah. That's a trailer which needs extra room for people's parole officers.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Log Room. It is Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. Jersey Johnny coming at you. With me, as always, are Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Hi.
Hello, guys.
Silence.
Greetings.
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings, Earthlings.
That was my Marcel Marceau impersonation.
There you go. So, how's everybody on this fine evening? Oh, there it is. Look at that.
It's great, snowing, and probably the microphone will pick up the plow going by.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's possible, but yeah.
It's been snowing here for 3 hours, and not one bit of it has stuck so far.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty. It was pretty
like
nasty.
Fastest.
It's crazy.
It was pretty nasty after maybe 40 minutes here.
Really?
Well, I had no idea.
4 days here. Come on.
I had no idea that it had started, and I had to go out and get some food.
Okay.
Because we didn't necessarily have enough to be locked in for 3 days, which probably won't happen anay.
No.
And I had to get some gasoline for the snowblower, and my wife went, "You better go, it's snowing." And it was starting to get slippery and crappy, and that was at 4:30, 5 o'clock. So
How much snow are you supposed to get?
like a foot, 8 to a
Really?
foot, 8 inches to a foot.
We're only getting 6 to 8 here at the shore, and inland. I mean, northwestern Jersey could get over 2 feet.
Send us your pictures of your snow angels, tonight's weather report, and we'll put them up on the air.
Yes,
Yeah.
please email them in to snowangels@logroom.com.
I will say this, though. I decided I was going to make some chili.
Okay.
And so I went to get the ingredients, amongst other things. And everything, all the canned goods were like 10 for $1.
Nice.
So I got
Can't
crushed
cancel.
tomatoes, and I got beans, and I got corn, and I got all this stuff that I need for the chili. And
10 for $1 or a buck each?
Sorry, 10 for 10. They were like $1 each.
I was going to say 10 for $1.
10
I would
for $1.
have stocked
Check
up on
the
100
expiration
cans.
date on
Yeah,
those bad boys.
I now have
Expired
738.
1987.
I have 738 cans of crushed tomatoes. And plus with the with
and
the
he only
store-
paid $7.
and I paid $7. Plus with the store card discount, I got the 12 cents off of that. So
Look at that.
I
Look at
paid
that.
88 cents for a can of premium pink beans to go in the chili.
I'm telling you, that chili's going to be.
I bought an extra can just to eat with a spoon because it was so
That chili's going to be worth $1.88.
cheap.
But it's going to taste so much
But it's
better.
going to taste like $10.
Well, the vegetable stock was $41, so I think it kind of evens out.
Yeah, they didn't have a sale on that. That was full
Well, all I
price.
had left was the organic, gluten-free, healthy stuff, and it's more expensive. So
It doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't even. It's more expensive, but it has no flavor.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
So,
It's
well, you're getting all the
unsalted.
flavor from the pink beans.
That darn organic stuff tasting like Mother Nature intended it to.
I know. What's
Yeah, but it's got no salt and gluten. I mean, what do you want?
I spent more than half a century ruining my taste bud.
If there's gluten in your vegetable broth, then you got a problem. Because there's some weird shit in your vegetable broth.
I'm telling you.
Like nobody ever thought, oh, I'll put in some celery scraps and maybe this loaf of bread and some cornflakes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes your chili taste so much better.
Well, I'm not saying you should, but the vegetable broth should naturally be gluten free.
Right.
Well, that's exactly the Minetti vegetable broth family recipe. How did you know that?
How did you know that?
Celery, old rye bread, and cornflakes.
And cornflakes.
Cornflakes and everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Stale cornflakes.
sometimes we use frosted flakes.
That's
right.
Oh, that's
Wow.
even better. That's just for dessert, though.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
that's
the
for
dessert.
dessert broth. Yes.
That's the dessert chili.
Exactly.
Uh,
Speaking of dessert chili.
Sweet heat.
Speaking of dessert chili, why don't we talk about the NFL?
I would hope so. We got a ticker that's
That's the only way we get back on track.
Emphatically NFL.
That's to remind us what we're supposed to be talking about instead of broth.
Hey,
listen, the Lager Room broth podcast, that's a whole other animal.
This is the Lager Room vegetable broth podcast.
You don't hear Stephen A. Smith talking about broth. He just doesn't understand it.
He just doesn't know. Stephen doesn't know.
Food? Is it something you drink? What is it?
It doesn't matter because whatever Max said, he would say the opposite.
The opposite.
Anyway,
it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So
Mac
would say it needs to be gluten-free, and he would be the one saying it needs cornflakes and rye bread.
That's
broth is the basis. It's the basis. It's what you make stuff out of. I thought it. No, I don't put it.
You gotta love it. Gotta love it.
All right. So NFL. What do we want to start with?
Well, why don't we start with the team that should not have started Daniel Jones last week?
Okay.
This idea that Daniel Jones was bad just because he was hurt the week before. Daniel Jones has played against a decent team, which he hadn't played against in a long time.
Yeah, well, this is very true, and he wasn't the one that played against the Seahawks either.
No, I know.
Right.
And the offensive line forgot how to block. Andy Thomas,
Well, they did stack the box too. I mean,
they did stack the box, and he went against one of the best.
They put 8 linemen and linebackers in the box. And,
well, I would give him credit if he could block one of them.
Yeah, it would be nice. But the bottom line is they didn't take advantage of that. They did not take one once. I think Daniel Jones threw like 3 passes of 20 yards or more.
Jason Garrett didn't make adjustments?
Imagine that.
What a surprise.
I'm shocked. Utterly. It's crazy that they didn't do. Even at halftime, go in and talk about, okay, let's look. They're stacking the box. Let's do something different. Nope. Let's come out in the third quarter and do the same thing.
My prediction with the Giants is going to, it was looking weak in the beginning of the year, but I remember when we were discussing the Giants early on before the season started, I said they'll probably win 5 games.
Yep.
I think that's probably what they're going to wind up winning.
Yeah. Well, they might win one more. Who knows? There's a lot of pundits, if you will, sports pundits, actually picking the Giants to beat Cleveland this Sunday. I don't necessarily concur, but they are. Looking at what Cleveland did, and granted they lost to the Ravens on Monday night, but looking at what they did and how they played against the Ravens, and those two teams are the Giants' next 2 opponents.
I mean, the good thing for the Giants is Cleveland does not have a great defense. And they have
a better defense. They should technically have a better defense than Arizona does. And Arizona they figured it out, So that doesn't mean Cleveland can't, Myles Garrett and Olivia Vernon are not, No.
And they're getting healthy in Cleveland, and unless the pundits know something that half of Cleveland's offense is hurt or has COVID and nobody else knows about it. I just don't see it.
I don't either.
Don't see it. The Giants had their one miracle game where they beat the Seahawks.
Right.
Who do they end the season with? They play Cleveland,
Ravens next week,
Ravens,
and then they finish with Dallas. Yeah,
and Dallas. So they might win one more against Dallas, but
and depending on what
is that going to be? Is that going to be enough? The Eagles are sort of resurgent, although
the only way
Dallas didn't look all that bad.
Jalen Hurts is going to propel the Eagles to wins in each of the next 2 weeks or whatever. But he's certainly sort of invigorated them.
Well, the team that's in the lead now and who most people are picking to win the division are the Washington football team, which would be great. The one to finally, after not having a name for the first time in 50 years, they're going to win an
Just think about this. And just think about this. This is the first time the word team has ever been used to be plural.
Mm-hmm.
It's not teams, it's team. It's the Washington football teams. It's like this is the first time a football team actually has a team name not ending in an S.
Well, but here's the thing. I would say starting Daniel Jones is probably Joe Judge's biggest mistake
all year. Yeah, definitely by far.
So far. What do you do at this point?
He has to.
What's that?
If he's healthy, he has to. He didn't look unhealthy.
He wasn't.
He looked rusty.
You know what told me he was unhealthy? He didn't move. There's never been one game in 2 seasons that he's played over the course of the games that he started that he hasn't moved out of the pocket and run, whether it's just throwing on the run or taking
it's a
off
plan play,
whether it's an RPO or a run or whatever. He didn't move out of the pocket. He had more lead in his feet than Phil Simms did early in his career. You know, he did
if
not.
You take that element out of his game, and obviously, look, Arizona figured that out pretty quickly that he was not going anywhere, and they just have license to tee off. So, you know, and again, I'll not that I want to defend Jason Garrett, but if you don't take Daniel Jones out of there, what exactly are you going to do to change things up in the second half? Are you going to throw a slant every play? Are you going to throw 7-yard outs every?
Run the ball and block. The thing that got you.
Well, but I mean they
when you have 5 linemen and throw a tight end there at 8 guys coming in, you can't block all of them. You can't. They rushed 8 guys almost every single play. So you
can only rush 8 guys if you're throwing the ball.
Right, but they didn't throw the ball. They rushed 8 guys and they still ran the ball.
It wasn't a good game for them.
It was not. It was.
The question here is, what do you do going forward? Do you just
who cares?
Daniel Jones.
I wait another 5, 6, 7 years for the Giants to finally give up on this disaster of a fucking draft pick, and maybe we'll get another defensive lineman and a linebacker. Maybe the worlds will collide again, and we'll have a championship. But until then, they're mediocre at best. They're below mediocre. Mediocre is like, hey, we might win 8 games. No, they're just not bad enough to get a good.
But can they build a good enough defense?
I think they can.
One that's more consistent, as in the game they played against Seattle.
Yeah,
look, they played a little over their heads in that game.
They're closer on defense, I think.
Closer on defense. So what if you build a great defense, which is a Giants
tradition?
Yeah. Right? That's the way they do it. And then you don't need a superstar quarterback. You just need a game manager. You can win Super Bowls that way.
When I say they're close, based on this past week, you would say, okay, are they that close on defense?
Well, it seems like they took a step back,
because they played a decent team.
But they're going to go up against a potent Cleveland offense, which we're going to assume half the team is not out with COVID and no one knows about it.
I think the Giants
are going to be tested again.
I think the Giants have to be more creative on the front, on their defensive line. They were a couple games back, and they were able to get some pressure. That's going to help their DBs. Their DBs are good, but they're not great. And whenever they have to be forced, one of them's going to be forced to cover man to man, and they're going to be exposed against Cleveland. And unless they get pressure on the quarterback, and it doesn't seem like they were not able to do it this past week. I doubt they're going to. And by the way, buckle up, because Cleveland's going to run the ball down your throat, so you're not going to be able to tee off on passing downs anyway.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to have to watch your lanes and try and contain.
I mean, the Giants might be able to move the ball against Cleveland. Is Cleveland's defense better than Arizona? I don't know. Good point. I don't know. I don't know that it is either. But I would say Arizona's defense is a little better in a matchup against the Giants than Cleveland's.
But if Cleveland's defense and their coordinator and everybody else get together and they look at the film from Sunday and see what Arizona did,
so what do you do?
Do you made any adjustments?
Do you start? Do you start? I mean,
well, that's the thing.
Do you really think the Giants would start Daniel Jones and subject him to injury if he was hurt and unable to play?
I don't think that.
I don't think Judge is that kind of. I mean, I'm not the biggest Joe Judge fan, but the one thing I think he's very conservative in that manner. I don't think he's going to put him in there.
I'm going to place more blame on Daniel Jones than I'm going to place on Joe Judge.
Fair enough.
Because if Daniel Jones realized he wasn't going to be able to be mobile and move around as much as he needed to and could and usually does, he should have spoken up, and he just wanted to get back in the game.
No, you can't.
No, I know he wants to get back in the game, but it's not.
No, but nobody is ever going to say, "Take me out, coach." I'm not.
But if the game plan,
I can't run a run pass option. You got to take me out. No one's ever going to. You know that.
So he's just going to lie to him and just go in there with knowing he has to do an RPO and then not do it.
You just can't lie to the coach. They had to have run throughs during the week before this game where they tested him out to see if he could play.
And watch him and say, okay, we think he's good enough.
All right. Well, then it had to be him being able to do it, sure, in practice and everything else. But when it came to the game time, he was just nervous. And I
don't know.
Well, listen,
maybe
it was one of them. It had to be one of them.
maybe there's a big, obviously there's a big difference in being in an in-game situation.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe he tweaks something or whatever. I don't know. My question is, moving forward through the rest of this season,
right?
Have the Giants, and you're the fans. You guys are both fans. Have the Giants done enough where they can start Colt McCoy for the next couple games if Daniel Jones is not ready? And okay, they don't make the playoffs, but maybe they get their 5 wins or whatever. And you go, well, it's an improvement. We're seeing improvement. We know we've got a good coach now. Are you going to be happy with that as fans?
No. But this season, I'm not happy with anything this season because I'm the one.
No, but what I'm
the
saying
one who
is,
predicted exactly where they were going to be when everybody was jumping up and down, sending firecrackers off because, hey, we're going to win the division by winning 5 games.
Well, yeah, but you can't go by what the professionals say because they want clicks and they want controversy. They want a hot take.
My point being is that it's another season where the Giants are going to be below 500. They're going to have a couple games where they moved in a positive direction. The overall season, yes, is it a building one? How many more building seasons do you need to have? I don't know. That's it. I mean, maybe is it 4? Is it 3? I mean, it doesn't seem like you have the luxury.
This was supposed to be the one.
You don't have
this one, and then
you don't have a luxury of keeping a team together very long anymore.
I know, but how much did you expect out of a first-year coach?
I didn't expect. I expected them to win 5 games. That was my prediction.
And they already did that.
Yeah. So,
but you're not happy with that.
Well, I'm not happy with it because
the
way they started,
obviously
they should have tagged for Trevor. And
in other words, let's say they beat Dallas. Okay, they lose the next 2 games and they beat Dallas and they end. Well, that'll be what, 6 wins?
6-10.
They'll be 6-10. And you say, okay, they were 6-10. They showed some improvement. The defense kind of came together. We think we have a good coach, considering where you were last year. What
was the Giants' record last year?
5-11.
I don't know.
Okay.
What?
So they won 5 games last year against a division that was way better than it was this year. So my point being, record aside, even if they win 6 games, do I think they made a move forward? No, I don't. Daniel Jones.
That's sort of the nugget of what I'm getting to here.
Right, but the biggest caveat is losing Saquon Barkley, and that's the big question mark for the Giants.
Yeah, doesn't that weigh in? I mean, doesn't that have to
absolutely
mold your expectations? I mean, if Saquon had been healthy, they'd be better, don't you think? They'd probably be division winner.
I don't know.
If they had, you'd have to think he helped the team, right? He's got to be good for a couple of wins. He's freaking Saquon Barkley's.
I don't know. I mean, he's Saquon Barkley. How much can he do with the offensive line? There's the one thing that I was feeling optimistic about with the Giants for the last 2 games before the Cardinals game, especially with Colt McCoy in there, is that they focused on running the ball. And their offense became very simplified. And it put a lot less pressure on the offensive line to have to do things that they're incapable of doing. And by doing so, they had some success. Now, were they blowing people's clocks off? No. But they kept the ball. They had a little bit more of a ball control offense. And they didn't put so much pressure on the defense by putting them in bad situations. And that's the one thing that Daniel Jones continues to do is he seems to always not only stall on offense, but constantly put the defense on their heels. Yeah. And we'll see.
It's not a recipe for success.
No, it's not.
It's not a recipe for success long term. And yes, I think you can nitpick and say, hey, they've improved here. There's still 3 games to go, so we don't know. I think they have to finish strong. And if Daniel Jones is healthy, then he has to play.
Right.
He has to. Now, if the Giants were 0-13 and Jones was hurt, then you sit him down and you put the guy who's used to sell, Zaples in the parking lot in
those
there.
Stereo receivers.
Yeah.
So does he
in the parking lot?
Does he have to be as healthy as he was this week, or does he have to be healthier?
Well, I mean I think the coach.
Because he could play. Obviously,
was his health limited or was it not? I don't know.
Well, he obviously couldn't run. I mean, he could take snaps.
If you're a quarterback in the NFL and you can't run, then you can't play. So if he couldn't run and Joe Judge put him out there, then that's on Judge.
See, I think that's the case. But I think they were hoping for the best.
I can't imagine the Giants putting Daniel Jones in any sort of dangerous situation. I just can't.
Well, maybe they thought the offensive line was going to protect him a little bit better. I don't know. John is smiling. Oh, and he's
John was frozen. Maybe John took a.
Oh, is that what happened?
Welcome to the Harry and Pete Show.
All right. Well, we're just going to argue about the Giants. Harry's going to make cogent points, and I'm going to interrupt a lot.
Well, let's talk about the Jets. Let's talk about the Jets. They're finally back to being the Jets.
Yeah. Well, listen.
No doubt about it. We suck.
Yeah. There's no question. I think you and John thought they might. One of you thought they might be competitive this week.
Yeah. Well, I thought they were competitive 2 weeks ago, and they were sort of competitive in the beginning of the game a week ago, but this past week, no. I mean,
yeah, I believe it was. I can't remember who it was. Somebody on ESPN said they have the best offense in the NFL on their first drive.
Yeah,
they look great on their first drive. They come down and they score, but maybe more often a field goal than a touchdown. Yeah. And then they just fall apart. Listen, Seattle was mad, and I think they just took it out on the Jets. And it was ugly.
Best news for Jets fan is Trevor Lawrence didn't say anything negative when he was asked about playing for the Jets. He says he's going to take on whatever challenge. Look, I think that I think the Jets can build something really special around Trevor Lawrence, and I think it might persuade some other free agents to sign there. I think they do need a new coach. I think that's probably going to happen. And I think Trevor Lawrence would be willing to go through a rebuilding stage. And maybe I think you mentioned it last week. Maybe you don't start him. Maybe you bring in a Fitzpatrick or somebody like that. But I think if you can get Trevor Lawrence, I think you have to give up on this Darnold experiment.
I'm back.
Hey.
We had a brownout for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sam Darnold is broken already, as some people are saying. I think he could probably go somewhere and have a good career, but he needs to be in the right hands. But the Jets have to do a number of things right, and that has more often than not been something of a stumbling block for them. They might get one right.
The one thing they need to do, which is very easy to do, is they need to lose the next 3 games. That's the one thing they need to do. Yeah. Now, some people can argue about that. My point, they need to get Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's the future of the franchise right there.
I think it's true, but they also have to bring in the right coach.
Absolutely, and I think that might go hand in hand.
Maybe a new GM too,
right?
And you've got the owners of the team have to, I don't know, stop whatever they're doing. Just get the hell out of the way. Yeah, hire some guys to run the. I said this, I think, in the beginning of the season. Hire some guys to run the team and let them do their work, and give them at least a couple 3 years. Sam Darnold, just offensive coordinators and coaches, they just keep turning over. I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad for that.
I do too.
How do you get any consistency going when you constantly have a new system, a new coach, a new this, a new that?
Right.
I think Trevor Lawrence could bring his college coach with him to New York. Now, I think they'd both prefer to go to Jacksonville. It's just in their blood a little bit more. But imagine that.
Well, you guys, while I was on the brownout timeout over here and my computer was rebooting up, you guys decided to switch to Jets talk.
Yeah.
And we the egg timer went off on the Giants.
The egg timer went off on the Giants. So no, absolutely.
we hit the third of an hour.
We were looking at the analytics and the vegetable broth discussion.
That
really wasn't true.
Was trending a lot higher than the Giants.
Well,
it really wasn't fair because we.
What do you have to say about the Giants?
Well, no, I don't have anything to say about the Giants, but specifically speaking about the Jets and the fact that you just said they need to lose the next 3 games, that brings me to this.
Talking about the Jets.
Talking about the Jets.
Talking about a quest.
This is a quest.
But a quest for what?
Quest for 16.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, this is the one thing they're doing right.
Yeah. Well,
which
they are.
Yeah, I guess if you want to find the silver lining inside of every dark cloud or whatever, I think that's the saying. That's it.
When was the last time the Jets had the number one pick in the draft? Like the actual number one? Has that ever happened?
Was it Namath?
I have no idea.
You know what?
That's a good question.
I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna find out right now.
I have no idea. I'm sure. Obviously,
they must have had.
It didn't work out.
Yeah, right. Well, it worked out. If it was Namath, it worked out. But that was when they were entering the league, or no?
Yeah,
I guess that was still when they were in the AFL.
Yeah, that was That was
the Jets have only had one number one overall pick.
All right, don't tell me who it was. It wasn't Namath, right?
No.
Okay.
It was 80s, right? Freeman McNeil.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Ken O'Brien.
Wait. Before I say no to that, hold on.
Number one Jets.
Number one.
If we had an audience, we could have a call.
We definitely, absolutely.
We're working on it.
Hold on. Joe Namath was. It doesn't even say whether it was what pick he was. So, but short of that, the Jets have only had one number one pick. Go ahead.
Actually, it did work out pretty well. If it is who I think it is.
Mm-hmm. You thinking there, Mr. Radio Pete? Want me to give you a hint?
Who's the Jets' best receiver of all time?
I'm gonna give Pete a hint. You thought he should have named his book something different.
Oh, maybe
Keyshawn?
Keyshawn. That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah. Keyshawn Johnson, 1996. He was the first pick.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that worked out pretty well.
Yeah. There you go.
The other one that came to mind, although I didn't really, was Blair Thomas.
Blair Thomas.
But he was their first pick, but I don't know where he was in the draft.
Checking it out here. Blair Thomas was the second pick overall.
Second pick, okay, yeah.
Second pick.
So that's kind of the opposite. That's the flip side of the coin from Keyshawn.
Mm-hmm.
Because that didn't work out at all.
And the lowest pick that they've had since then was not this year, but last year and the year before, 18 and 19. Sam Darnold and Quentin Williams, they both had number 3s. So, but yeah.
And where? Just
goes to prove draft picks are maybe not the only path to success.
Yeah, no. They had a number 2 once too, though. They had another number 2 once too. That was Johnny Lamb Jones in 1980.
Okay, that didn't work out either. They're just terrible at developing.
Didn't he open a car wash?
They're just
he was
horrible.
in the movie Car Wash, actually.
Johnny Lamb Jones.
Johnny
Lame Jones, we called him.
Lamb Jones.
All right, so yeah.
Well,
so the Jets are historically bad at either picking and or developing players.
I mean, come on. They're going to do it. I think they're going to do it.
You think they are?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll find out.
I think they
they left no doubt last week.
Oh, well, no, absolutely. I mean,
yeah. Still, they could get tripped up. I don't know who they're. I know New England. They finished with New England. They could get tripped up with New England.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
because at that point, New England still has something to play for, though.
If they tie with Jacksonville, who gets the first pick?
Jacksonville. Strength of schedule.
There's just even if they get it, there's so many ways that they could screw it up. They could bring in a terrible coach.
That gives us something to talk about,
and just kind of sort of quote unquote ruin Trevor Lawrence too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Adam Gase said a bunch of things today. He said he's let the ownership down. He let Christopher Johnson down. So yeah, he's trying to figure out where things went wrong, and causing him to.
Well, could have been who you picked as a defensive coordinator.
I think we're with him, not with Chris Johnson.
Oh, you mean where he went wrong?
Where he went wrong,
not where the organization went wrong. Because I remember and he talked and he stood and he announced Adam Gase was the coach. I believe that's where they went wrong. But
yeah,
him agreeing to the job, that was where he went wrong.
Oh, this actually popped up here. Hold on one second. This is interesting. It's a headline. Never mind. I thought it actually happened. It says, could Clemson's Trevor Lawrence, projected number 1 NFL draft pick, spurn the New York Jets? Well, yeah.
He was, but I was telling while you were gone, he actually had he was asked that question today, and he said he's up for any challenge that comes up. So
there you go.
I don't think he's that kind of person. I mean, so he's going to spurn him and demand to go where?
Apparently anywhere but New York.
I mean, there's worse places, I think, to play than New York.
Yeah. No, there are.
Well, yeah, I guess the question is he, and or does he want to be perceived as someone who's going to shy away from the big mountain, right? Because New York is the biggest mountain, right? Sure. It's going to be a tough place to play. Well, look, it's the big media market, right?
Sure. Right. It's one of the top. It used to be the largest. I would say that right now, especially with the amount of teams there, LA and Dallas is always, I think that the national media has taken over a bit. So it seems like teams like that,
but it's still kind of the capital of the world.
He's going to have the best chance to make the most money in New York. That's for sure.
And really, he's going to be the first guy potentially in 50 some odd years,
right,
to bring a championship. It's going to be a short list, right, of New York football quarterback heroes.
Him and Joe Namath.
Yeah, there's going to be one other guy on that list.
No. You're forgetting this other quarterback.
Bubby Brister?
No.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, he's number one in our hearts.
Chad's number one in our heart. I mean, come on.
But I really like that show.
But if he's able to do that,
Growing Pains. Yeah,
right. He's going to be gold in New York, and maybe he's the kind of guy that wants that sort of challenge. And does he want to be perceived as, I don't want to go to New York, they're just terrible.
No, yeah.
I'd rather go someplace else where I have a better chance to win. Sure. Or is he the guy that wants to say, okay, put it right here, I'll take it, and I'll do it in New York, and I'll be the freaking king of the world if I do.
Right. And there are teams that need a franchise quarterback, but there's a lot of teams that right now have their cards stacked with a franchise quarterback, or at least one in waiting. And so I think there's more teams with a young quarterback who they're saying, hey, this is who our guy is right now, than there has been in a long time. And there's a lot of veterans hanging on that aren't going to leave in the next couple of years. Yeah. So, and he's played enough college ball where he doesn't necessarily need to sit back and do the Aaron Rodgers routine. So,
right.
Yeah, now if he goes to the Jets and they bring in, whoever the veteran is, I sit him for half a season. I think that's really all you need to do. I don't think he needs to take the whole year off.
No,
but give you an idea of how your offensive line is. Number one,
right.
You don't want to.
I mean, look at Joe. Look at Joe Burrow.
Right, exactly. Don't throw him onto a horrible team where he's going to get, hit 6 times a game and buried into the turf, and that's not going to help anything. So let your veteran mentor quarterback take some of that abuse early on, right. And then hopefully tighten up the offensive line, and then you bring in the kid. And to me, it was a formula for success, and that was even a short version for decades in the NFL. You didn't play the first year. You might not even play the second year. How many years did Steve Young sit? Now, again, behind an all-time great, but he was not the only guy.
Aaron Rodgers, even more recent than that.
Right. These are not the only guys that came into the league and didn't play right away. So that was kind of the formula for years, and they've gotten away from that. But
even Mahomes, with Alex Smith, I mean,
well, it was only a year, though, wasn't it?
But it was a year, but it was still a year. I mean, if Mahomes was drafted this year and went to any other team, he'd be out there.
Yeah.
Burrow started at the beginning of the season. Tua, I think if Tua wasn't held together by rubber bands, he would have been out there at the beginning of the year. I mean, it's a new way of thinking.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's not delusions of grandeur, but we're hoping that the young stud quarterback can make us a little better than we actually are. Maybe we're going to play a little bit above our heads.
I think their mindset is that, especially if he's going to a team that's is rebuilding, let them get their lumps. Let them learn by doing it and get used to the speed and the decision making of the NFL. And it seems to have worked out okay. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
yes, but I mean, there's a bunch of, I don't know. I think it certainly separates the wheat from the chaff when that happens. But I think there are
challenge
guys
is not getting hurt.
Yeah, but I think there are guys that had more potential than maybe they have shown, and they got into. I always talk about bad habits. When you're a rookie and you're out there and you're getting beat up, and you get into bad habits, and it's really hard to break those.
Right.
And then there's guys like Josh Allen who have worked really hard to break those, but he kind of did it by being thrown into. I mean, I guess his first year he didn't, but yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I think that they should at least half a season, 3/4 of a season sit and maybe some limited reps, but it just doesn't seem to be the course anymore.
No, but maybe it'll get back to that. You don't know. Could be. I mean, you get a couple of guys that come out and everybody thinks they're going to be surefire, and they end up thrown, into the out of the frying pan into the fire, and they end up failing. Then maybe they'll start to reevaluate this and go, maybe we should give them a little bit of time to watch and learn, even if it is just half a season or even 4 games.
Right.
To get used to being on the field and seeing that speed.
Exactly.
I can't see how that could not help you when you get out there.
If the Jets are determined and make the right choice and go after Trevor Lawrence, then I think there's 2 things they need to do immediately before that. Number 1 is they need to hire the best offensive line coach they can find. And number 2, they need to get some young but experienced offensive linemen in free agency and pay them.
Yeah.
And because that's really where their success is going to lie.
Yeah. No, you're right. Definitely. How about a couple other games? What do you think of the Rams-Pats game last Thursday night? 24-3. Rams,
the Rams look pretty good.
Yeah. No, they do. I mean, is it that the Rams look as good as they looked, or are the Pats just done?
I don't think the Pats are done, but they're
not one touchdown.
They're very, very, very dismal on offense. If they can't produce points through special teams and turnovers, they just can't move the ball. No. And it's not all on Cam Newton. We saw some of this with Brady last year. They don't have a lot of offensive weapons, and for whatever reason, Belichick has not reloaded the gun, and they look uninspired on offense.
They do. Overall, they look totally uninspired.
Yeah, I don't think they operate offensively completely with smoke and mirrors, but a decent amount of what they do is kind of smoke and mirrors, and you get up against a good team who kind of sees through that. It's that they're just not, they don't have a lot of weapons, and
and
Newton is not consistent.
No, they don't have anybody who can make up for it with an accurate, quick, short passing game. They just, Newton's really deteriorated. In the beginning of the season, I was like, you know what? He doesn't look too bad. But I think it was because he was able to use his mobility a little bit more. Now, it just seems like it's just not there.
He doesn't look good. Well, since COVID, he doesn't. Since he got COVID, he doesn't look.
Well, that's true too. And a lot of people are saying that it has affected him going forward.
They're saying one of the symptoms is losing any ability to pass the ball that you might have had previous to COVID.
It's a
which is odd
study.
because there's a lot of women that are in their young 20s that just can't throw that football as well as they used to anymore.
And now there's some that have come out of COVID who are rifling the thing down the field.
Exactly.
But this idea that he's Cam Newton and he's a professional athlete and he's going to get the disease and he's going to come out of it and he's going to go right back to being, that it's not going to have any lingering effects.
Right.
That's not necessarily a realistic thing.
I don't think he was that sick. I think the time off. I think the problem, and you're seeing this is that there wasn't much of a training camp, and he's going into a system that's completely different. Belichick their offensive scheme is basically like, hey, Cam, what do you feel comfortable with? Okay, we'll do this run. We'll do this run. We'll let you roll out. And they have 12 plays.
Right. Well, and that's what we said early in the season when they won a couple of games and he was rushing a lot. And we said, well, you can't do this the whole season. They're going to have to find some sort of offense. But I don't think they really found any
Yeah.
Any measurable offense to add to that.
And his ability to sort of score in goal line situations or on third and short situations or even fourth and short situations just seems to have diminished. It's like they are just stacking everybody up against him, and he just can't overcome it anymore. He's at the end of his career.
Well, when everybody knows what's going to happen, advantage defense.
Sure, absolutely.
And yet the Pats still could make the playoffs.
And yet they still can make the playoffs. Unbelievable. This is 2020.
That's why we love them.
This is crazy.
That's why we love them.
The Chiefs and the Dolphins.
The Dolphins are for real.
Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs won.
Three interceptions, and they still won.
Yeah, 3 interceptions. That's very. I mean, he's never done that. He's never done that. He's never thrown 3 interceptions.
Well, he probably did it on purpose.
Yeah, but he, is it? What is it? Does it say more about the Dolphins being good, or more about the Chiefs?
I think
still settling back down a little bit.
I think what it says is that the Chiefs can score whenever the hell they want.
Right.
But their defense is not elite. They have a good defense. It's better, I think, than it was last year, and they won a Super Bowl. But they're not great, and you can score on them. And especially if they turn the ball over a few times and give you decent field position. Right. They were down 10-0, then they scored 20, 30 straight points, and then they sort of
gave it back a little bit.
Gave it back again, and that seems to – but they won.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So – and that's been their formula all year. They're not really blowing anybody out this year.
But they flip the switch when they need to.
They flip the switch when they need to.
And the only thing worse than the Patriots being good, as for a Jet fan, is the Dolphins being good.
Right.
But now, finally, okay, Brady's gone.
The Dolphins are kind of a fun team
look, the Dolphins and the Bills are good. What's up?
Nothing good about the Dolphins. Yeah. So finally, for Jet fans, look, we're terrible and all that. But for the future, well, Brady's gone and New England is no longer the behemoth. Great. Now the Dolphins are getting good. Thank you very much. So
here's the thing with Kansas City. They were always the fastest team in the NFL. They're even faster now.
Yeah.
And it's scary how much speed they have. Yeah. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think Travis Kelce, he may be the best receiver right now playing. He's having a hell of a year.
Yeah, no, he is. He is. I mean, between him and Tyreek Hill, a couple weeks ago, 203 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah. Well, Hill's a little bit more
first half.
Yeah, I mean, he goes from great to really good, but Travis Kelce he's one of those game changers. If he could stay healthy, he's going to go down as one of those, as a tight end who's again sort of created a new dynamic at that position. He's kind of changing that position a little bit, but what a weapon to have. Imagine having him as your third or fourth option.
Right. Unbelievable.
When you're dumping the ball off to
I'm imagining having him as the first option.
Right. Yeah. Dumping the ball off to Travis Kelce.
Or who did they sign? I'm drawing a blank on the running back that they just happened to sign off waivers.
Le'Veon.
Yeah. My look down is Le'Veon Bell.
My check down is Le'Veon Bell.
We already have a rookie who's pretty much tearing it up.
Right.
Well, let's get Bell too.
We'll put two guys in the backfield and split them out wide in opposite directions.
It's like the Lakers in the It's like the Lakers in the 80s when James Worthy's your third best player.
Yeah. We'll have Hill and Kelce out in the pattern, and then we'll have Bell on one side and Hilaire Edwards on the other side waiting for a screen. And you figure out, go ahead and defensive scheme against that.
That's crazy.
I really think if there's 8 seconds left in the game and you give Patrick Mahomes the ball on his own 20-yard line, they can win. I would say this makes no sense, but I'm going to bet with them. Go for it.
Yeah, like a 30-yard out.
30-yard out, which takes half a second with Tyreek Hill.
It takes about 2.1 seconds. And then they've got 5.9 left.
Yeah. Right.
They can go over the middle for another 27 and then kick a field goal. Or throw it 35 yards into the end zone.
Right.
Yeah.
And that the other flip of that, as far as you say with the Jets fans or whatever, with the Dolphins, I mean, the Bills are one game away from clinching the NFC East.
Bills look good too.
Yeah,
the Bills look good. I mean,
and you know what's funny? This will be the first time, assuming they're going to win the NFC East. This will be the first time since 1995 that they've won the AFC East. First time since 95. And Josh Allen was born in 96. So, little odd.
Well, they can go to the Super Bowl and lose just as well as any of those other Bills teams.
Sure. Well, I mean, we've said since the beginning.
No, they're
of the
not
season,
going to the Super Bowl.
No, they're not. We've said since the beginning of the season though that the AFC East is the Bills to lose. So
yeah.
Well, does that game say more about the Bills or more about the Steelers?
Yeah,
I think a little bit of both. I think the Steelers are just in a funk.
Yeah.
I think that weird schedule. I think injuries, COVID, whatever the hell else is going on. I think their weaknesses are coming to life a little bit, but they're just in a funk right now.
Well, I think I heard that over the last couple of weeks, Roethlisberger's throwing the ball like 45 times a game.
They need to run the ball.
They don't seem to be able to generate any yards on the ground. No. And you're asking how old he's 38 or whatever.
30, 38, 39. He's the same age as
like
Eli.
That, and I think I said last week that he's, maybe wearing down a little bit because, he was injured. He's coming back. Right. And all the other things, no training camp and no preseason and all that, or, limited training camp.
I don't think Roethlisberger's a problem. I think the Steelers don't have a ton of weapons, and I think people are starting to figure them out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, they're right. They're asking him to do stuff that he shouldn't be doing. That shouldn't be any sort of a formula for them. But they don't really have anything else to do right now except
not at all
have him throw 40 times a game.
I think look, other than Aaron Rodgers and obviously Mahomes, I mean, is Josh Allen's in my book a top 5 quarterback right now?
You put him at this point. You put him ahead of maybe Russell Wilson?
I think he's up there with him. I think he's had as good a season. I mean,
if you just look at this season, not the history.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think he's top 5. I think Wilson's obviously up there too. He's having a hell of a year. He's having
a hell of a year.
And the Bills are pretty resilient, but I think the difference between the Bills and the Steelers is on any given day is splitting hairs. I think the Bills are on a little bit of a momentum uptick, and the Steelers are just dealing with. I think this might be a good thing for the Steelers because maybe they can get it out of their system and turn it around in time for the playoffs.
And they have a game this week that should get them straight. So,
yes,
yeah, but yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of you have something about Steelers.
No, I think you're going to mention the next game that I was going to ask about.
I was just going to throw in there the Eagles and the Saints.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to ask about. I thought that might be the next one we would want
to. What happened there?
What happened with all of the NFC East teams?
Well, every NFC East team won this past week except for the Giants. So,
and the previous week it was exactly the opposite. Everybody lost except for the Giants, so it was kind of a mirror image in that. But Saints, just had a bad game, stumbled. I noticed Drew Brees is off. He's coming back now.
He's coming back. Yeah, he's off. They've
seen enough. They've seen enough without him on the field.
They've seen enough of Taysom Hill, exactly. So, but now was it that the Saints were caught off guard, or is Hurts for real? I mean,
he certainly energized the team.
Does Carson Wentz have anything to worry about, or you think this was like a maybe 1.5?
Yeah, Carson Wentz has something to worry about.
He should be starting to sell his house at this point.
He's been the top headline on national sports.
Called Nick Foles and asked him who realtor used.
Yeah, he's been the top headline on national sports talk shows for the last month.
Right.
So yeah, he has something to worry about. Here's a little secret. Carson Wentz is not that good.
No.
And all of this talk about, it's the offensive line and the play calling. Yeah, maybe they found a quarterback who fits the talent or lack thereof that they have right now.
Right.
And yes, it's hard to game plan against somebody like Hurts because he doesn't have a lot of film to watch and you don't really know what he's going to do. And yes, I think he did energize the team a little bit, the same way Nick Foles energized this team a little bit. There's talks of Carson Wentz just refusing to run the plays that the offensive coordinator is calling.
Yeah, that's the latest thing.
I always said this. Even when there was talk of him being an MVP candidate, when he had one good year or half a good year, I just don't see it. I just don't see him being this guy who's going to lead the Eagles to Shangri-La. I just don't see it. And I'm not sure Jalen Hurts is the answer either, but he's the answer now.
Right. And he's certainly, he gives them another dimension. Not that.
Hey, Jalen Hurts won a national championship.
Right.
He's also, he's not the youngest guy, playing in the league either. He's got some experience behind him, and he's a pretty darn good quarterback.
Right.
Yeah. You're right. You would think he's not a slouch. I mean, he's not some cast off, been retread.
Right.
We really don't know what he's capable of.
He hasn't really had a chance to show what he could do.
And as far as Carson Wentz and the great half a season that he had, you could say, look, he was on a very talented team.
3 years ago, you're talking about,
Right. He was on a Super Bowl championship team.
He was on a Super Bowl championship team, and they were good.
Well, he was on a Super Bowl championship sideline.
He had a lot of talent around him, and then he got hurt, and then Nick Foles came in and won a Super Bowl. Right. And I'm not saying that to disparage Nick Foles, but Nick Foles had a lot of talent around him too.
Absolutely, but do the Eagles win the Super Bowl if Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt?
Maybe they might have, but
I don't think they do.
Well, that's what everybody says. But look, he was having a great season, and maybe it was more the great team around him, and he was functioning well within that. Maybe he's not that great, but he looked great because he had a great team around him, and I think there's something to back that up, because you look what happened when he went down. Foles had, whatever the pixie dust or whatever, but we've also seen a lot of Foles where he's not that great. He's not an elixir anywhere or necessarily everywhere.
Right.
So I think it's possible that maybe Carson Wentz was never that great to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's, well, I don't know. I don't know, certainly, if Jalen Hurts is the answer, but you might as well give him a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how Carson Wentz ever gets his team back. From the reports that we're hearing now, and you always, once you're down, everybody wants to kick in. Leaks happen, and he doesn't run the plays that they call, he's belligerent and all that. How does he ever get this team back? I don't think he ever does.
No.
And Philly, whatever, you're going to have to eat that money. You can't keep him around.
That's a ton of money, though, to eat.
You can't keep him around, but he's no good. You blew it. You screwed up. Take the L. Dump him. You got at least a possibility of a good young quarterback who might turn into something with Hurts.
Right.
And if that doesn't happen, then you move on. There's lots of teams that bring in quarterback. And that guy didn't work out. Well, we go on to somebody else. Well, that guy didn't work out.
They're only solaces if they're going to find somebody that actually so desperately needs a quarterback. They're going to actually pick up some of
maybe, but it's also not like
salary.
It's also not like Philly has all the other talent they need to win right now.
Right.
They're players and a few players away from being a talented enough team to really contend. Yes. So it's not like, oh man, we got to fix this quarterback thing because we're going to win the Super Bowl. We got to win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years. They're really not in that position.
I mean, I think you have to give Hurts another shot, and
I think you do too until he fails.
Until he fails, I think he's in there for the rest of the season.
They've obviously given Wentz a number of fails before they pulled the plug on him. So, and Hurts, it always surprised me that he wasn't starting in the NFL. I mean, this guy has a pretty good college career record. It was odd, he was one of the few guys who I think win a championship and then lose his starting job to another quarterback and then come back in after he gets hurt. And yeah, I mean, he had it and then changed teams his senior year. But
then he said, "Well, the hell with this, I'll go somewhere else."
But he's only 22.
Yeah,
and he's played 4 really good years of college ball. So I don't know. Give him a chance.
Yeah.
Looking at the two guys,
they looked a lot better.
Money aside, you'd have to say the future looks brighter with Hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants look better with Colt McCoy. I think Jalen Hurts is a little better than Colt McCoy.
Yeah, not to get back into the Giants. And there's one thing that I was going to say before the brownout happened. It's just that, Colt McCoy, the only thing that Colt McCoy has going for him is that he actually does have a little bit more of a game management experience.
Well, he's got the name.
Right, sure, absolutely. But you know what?
Is that really? Does he have that going for him?
Yeah, well, you know what?
Wait, you mean his game management?
Kind of like the Dalai Lama and
Carl
Speckler.
Yeah, he walking into the TikTok diner going, table for two for Colt. I'm not sure.
How do you spell that?
Yeah.
Well, when you hear it when you're outside of the Outback in a nice summer night and you hear Colt, your table is ready. Colt.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be looking around to see
pew, pew, pew. Your table's ready.
Pew, pew, pew.
There you go. Well, one other thing really quick on NFL. MVP, you mentioned before top quarterbacks. I'm not talking about the MVP voting or anything, but obviously Josh Allen's got to be in that discussion, right? And Russell Wilson, of course, Pat Mahomes. Where does Aaron Rodgers fit into that?
I think he's right. I think the top two are Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes. No question about it.
Actually, too. Right now, Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers has 39 TD passes. Green Bay as a team has 38 punts the entire year. So
if I was voting today, I'd give it to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. If I would too. If it was today, if the season was done today, Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. So, and his numbers are better this year right now than they were when he won the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think Mahomes has hurt a little bit because the team around him is so incredibly talented.
Yeah,
I mean, he does things that no one else does. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But there are other guys that you could put on that team who would have success.
My whole thing is that I think Mahomes is having a great year. I think Rodgers is having as good of a year without as much talent. And I always say, if you put Aaron Rodgers on the Kansas City Chiefs, I think he'd do okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. That's kind of the point I'm making. Is he doesn't have nearly as much talent. And, you can look at a guy like Jared Allen and say, well, he's really more important to his team than either of those two other guys.
And he's been a little up and down, and obviously his team is going through some growing pains. But he's another guy. I mean, he's another future's bright.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league right now.
This is true. This is definitely.
Well,
there's just none in New York.
just none in New York, exactly.
Well, not in downstate New York.
Well, they are.
Well, no, there's one in New York, and then there's
one in New York and none in New Jersey.
Shipped off to Jersey.
That's right.
There you go. So, should we do some picks?
Sure.
Why don't we do some picks? Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Quick recap from last week. It was an interesting week. Of course, John still sits in front. He went 3-2, so it's 45-12. Harry picked up a game, going 4-1. He's 36-21 now, which is very respectable, young man.
Absolutely.
Yours truly 3-2. So 2 games separating Harry and I for second place. That's the real race in this thing. And the coin, screw you, George Washington. 1-4. They're now. The coin is now under 500 at 28-29. So
there you go.
Mathematically, I think they're not quite out of the running. I mean, Harry or I could really go on a horrible tear, a Jets-like tear.
Yeah,
and maybe the coin could catch up, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Not out of the question.
Right.
It's possible, but unlikely. But the real battle here is for second place. John wins first place and a Panera Bread coupon or whatever it is,
and your yoga
and a pair of yoga pants so you can go in there. So let's start off this week with the
Los Angeles pants on Craigslist.
And they go, they have to be a football team yoga pants.
Absolutely.
Oh God.
Jaguars.
What were those pants that everybody wore in the 90s?
Zubas?
Yeah, there you go.
Zebra stripes on.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway.
All right, so we got 6 games this week because we got Saturday games and night games and the horrible New York team games.
Oh my.
New Jersey team games. So let's start off with the old Chargers, not the Clippers, not the LA. I got LAC, not the Clippers, but the Chargers against the LV, which is my new name for them Las Vegas Raiders.
There you go.
Some firings going on in Vegas this week.
Yeah. Maybe it'll help them.
There you go.
Look, their team, I think, has a pretty good future, largely because of Chucky, but they're up and down this year like everybody else. Yeah. Anybody want to pick the Chargers?
You know what? I mean, I've been back and forth about this game.
I haven't thought about it.
You look at the Chargers and you think, okay, well maybe they actually could win the game, but I just don't think so. I think the Raiders are in this game.
The Raiders rule out defensive starters Farrell Morrow, Arnett, and Jonathan Abram versus Chargers.
I still think the Raiders win.
This is a tough one. I don't know. The Raiders are just a team. Can you really figure them out?
You'd think that Chargers would put it together at some point, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how good Hey Bear Herbert.
Herbert.
And you think it's gonna come together, but they what do they have? 3 wins this season, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm gonna go with the Chargers.
All right. Harry looking to pick up another game. Let's flip the old coin here. And the coin comes up heads. So that means home team. So once again, now this was a losing formula for us last week, John.
Yes, it was.
We all lost except for Harry in one of those games. Oh, the Arizona game. So We'll see if that happens again. Buffalo at Denver. Harry, since you're the Denverite here amongst us.
Denver and the Giants are so similar to me. It's just, although Denver doesn't quite give me as much agita. The Broncos are not going to win. So,
anybody want to disagree, John?
I don't. I know the Bills are.
I don't either. Buffalo, I think, is on a mission. So the coin says tails. So they like the Buffalo Bills as well.
The Buffalo Bills.
Carolina at Green Bay. I'm going to just go out on a crazy limb and pick Green Bay.
Yeah, I think you could put GBs for all of us.
Okay.
Harry, you would disagree with that?
No. Carolina has a football team?
Yeah.
Their hockey team's good. Their hockey team has a better chance against the Packers.
Their old basketball team has a better chance against
Grandmama.
Coin says tails. So the coin likes the old Panthers.
Hey.
Of course for them.
Dumb coin.
That's why thank God that we're all beating the coin. That really would be embarrassing. Okay. The old Jets against the Rams. I'm going to put myself down for the Rams.
Take a look at my jersey.
Okay.
I took one for the team once. I'm not doing it again. So,
Rams all around.
Rams all around. Those horrible uniforms. I don't know what it is about their uniforms this year, but they just drive me crazy.
And they have to keep them for 5 years. That's an NFL rule.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Coin says heads. So, home team Rams, winner.
There you go.
All right, Cleveland and the Giants. This is probably, of course, amongst our picks, at least the most interesting game.
Yep.
Can the Giants defense recapture some of what they had against Seattle and go up against a very talented Cleveland offense? Do we even know who's going to play quarterback? And Cleveland's defense is not so good. Can the Giants score any points?
I think Joe Pizarczyk might play quarterback.
Today's obscure reference was brought to you by
We want Zonka. We want Zonka. I don't know. You guys are the Giant fans, so you have to pick first.
Oh, yeah. The Browns are going to win.
Okay.
And they're going to win by 3 touchdowns.
I so want the Giants defense to, figure it out, but no, Browns are winning this game.
Yeah, I would say this could be a statement game for the Giants defense, but
you would think.
I don't.
I think it will be a statement. The statement will be, we're not that. We're not that good.
We're not that good.
I left out the word positive. Yeah, I just don't think they've shown enough consistency to really say, their defense is that good. It can play that well, but maybe they're not that good. So those the Brownies are going to win. And the old coin says tails, which, Cleveland, there we go. Largely in agreement. And finally, the Steelers, who now have 2 losses against Cincinnati. Who is the Cincinnati quarterback?
Colt McCoy.
Any idea?
Who's going to win or who the quarterback
No,
is?
who the quarterback is, I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think they do at this point.
Pittsburgh can't stumble this much, can they?
They're going to walk outside the stadium.
If Pittsburgh loses to Cincinnati this week, then they need to just forfeit the rest of their games and fire Mike Tomlin.
Steelers get right on this. Steelers get right on this game.
I mean, Kenny Anderson's not playing.
Yeah. All right, let's see what the coin says.
They're bringing Boomer back.
Coin says tails. So you like Pittsburgh again.
I think Brandon Allen is the...
Brandon Allen. Is he related to Josh Allen?
So Harry's going out against the grain, against the consensus with the Clippers. It's LAC. I got to find better monikers for these things.
I like the Clippers. I think Kawhi's going to have at least 2 touchdowns.
He's going to have at least 2 touchdowns.
He can beat the Raiders.
And an interception.
And over 100 yards rushing.
So he's got the Chargers. The coin has Carolina, and everyone else is locked in, in lockstep as far as all the rest of the games. So this will be a boring week where, Harry may picks up a game, and then we're only 1 game apart. That could be very exciting.
This is true.
The Chargers every week, they're just like almost there.
It's not like they're getting blown out. They've lost.
And this Vegas team is so unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So there we go. So it's going to be interesting.
Coming down to the wire. It's getting close. It's getting interesting. So
yeah, we're picking through the playoffs as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure, why not?
Why the hell not? We'll pick every game.
Listen, and then we'll finally get to pick some good games.
Exactly.
Instead of the Jets and Giants and Cincinnati.
That's where it heats up.
And the Chargers every week.
So the Steelers and Bengals are Monday night?
Monday night, yeah.
Yeah, can we all agree that?
Can we just move another game from next week to Wednesday?
Does anyone know what's going on? Why is the NFL?
Who looked at?
Don't they have flex games? Didn't they fix it so they don't have to have this kind of crap?
You know what? When they projected that game, they figured that was going to be Joe Burrow, and it was going to be a bigger.
Isn't the whole point of the way they do things now so that when they screw up or something happens like this, they can change it?
They did, and they have. Cincinnati's. I
don't think they can flex. They can flex schedule Sunday games. They can't do Mondays. Yeah. Mondays are ESPN, and that's it.
Yeah. They have had Cincinnati on quite a bit this year in prime time, and I think it was just the expectation. I mean, that first Cincinnati-Cleveland game was a hell of a game, but of course Burrow was playing, and we didn't really know what was up with Cleveland. I don't know. I think they're just trying. I mean, the Rust Belt will be happy with that game, but I mean. Other than people, drinking moonshine out of their shed in Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, I'm not sure you're going to get a ton of a national audience for that game.
Not so much. So much. We'll be watching, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, we'll watch anything.
We'll be watching.
I watched the dog show on Christmas.
We'll be watching in Ohio and half of Pennsylvania. We'll be
That's
watching.
right.
That's it.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's probably a lot more moonshiners across the country than we realize.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with
people who haven't worked in months, and they're like, "I can't afford liquor. I'm going to make my own."
Let me make sure everybody's clear. I have nothing against moonshine. In fact, the first time I visited my dad at his new home in South Carolina, he came out on his porch with a mason jar full of moonshine and said, "Here, my friend gave this to me." I was like, "Okay." So there's nothing.
You don't remember anything.
Well, I only had
about 10 minutes later,
no. It wasn't that. I didn't have that much, but.
I'm just saying it might be, in these times it might be cheaper to buy a bushel of corn and make your own mash than it is to go to the store and buy a bottle.
There's some very popular TikTok videos on how to make your own moonshine, and Etsy's selling out of DIY moonshine kits. So it's it's very popular. How making your own rye bread was really
mason
sourdough. Now moonshine is taking over for the sourdough starters. So
exactly.
Yeah,
if I could just get that rye bread and cornflake broth to take off.
That's right.
You know what?
A millionaire.
Maybe we can make a rye bread and cornflake mash too for whiskey to drink with.
Now you're talking.
You can make moonshine out of anything. I'm pretty
moonshine
sure.
out of the chili when it's done. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Chili moonshine.
The perfect booze to drink with your bread-based chili.
Chili shine.
Your gluten chili.
Chili shine.
Gluten-full chili.
Chili shine, moonshine. Now gluten-free.
Yeah, now
gluten full.
For the next 10 minutes, gluten-free.
Extra gluten.
Extra gluten in yours. Just enjoy.
Because let's face it, who gives a shit?
Well, that's what you end up when you eat it. You end up with extra gluten.
Gluten in your chili because it's 2020.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
All right, what's next?
All right, well, you know what? I mean, it's just a lot of interesting stuff today. So why don't we do our top 10 list today?
Top 10.
All right.
Top 10s. Top 10 defensive linemen we're doing. Top 10 defensive linemen of all time. Why don't you kick us off there, Mr. Radio Pete?
Who are we starting with? Oh,
Number
Bob
10.
Lilly.
Number 10.
Number 10.
I said who, not what. Let me see. Hold on. Let me pull up here. I know I got him on this list here somewhere.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Bob Lilly.
Bob Lilly.
Listen, what can I say? These lines, you get some of my favorite Dallas guys on here. Bob Lilly, one of them.
You always wind up reading them.
It's nice of you to set me up to talk about the Cowboys, because I know you can't stand to talk about
not the least.
He's definitely number one with the most amount of arm pads ever worn.
All right, Dallas from 61 to 74, 11 times a Pro Bowler, 9 times an All-Pro, Super Bowl champion, one time Hall of Fame, 1980, and on the NFL 100 all-time team. 14 seasons for Bob Lilly, and he missed, I believe, one game. Known as a real thinking man's player, very, very intelligent, fast, strong, and Mr. Cowboy, I believe, was a nickname that was given to him sort of post-career. Just one of the most upright guys. Not somebody that you wanted to take on.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, none of these guys are.
No, none of them are. Yeah, that really goes without saying. But.
Yeah, you don't want to get in an argument at the Safeway with any of these defensive linemen. It's not a good idea.
He's really intelligent. Football mindset. But Mr. Cowboy, there you go.
Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly at number 10.
There you go. I'll take number 9. Number 9 is going to be none other than Mr. Michael Strahan. Michael Anthony Strahan. His parents really liked Van Halen. He was drafted in the second round of the 93 draft, 40th pick overall by the New York Football Giants. Super Bowl champion in 2007 season, Super Bowl 42. 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 2-time sacks leader, 2001 and 2003. Believe he holds the single-season sack record.
Which is a phony record.
I was setting up Mr. Radio Pete on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
You know what? I was at that game, and I was probably about 150 feet away from him tackling Brett Favre, and it looked pretty real to me. So,
well, he sacked Kelly Ripa, so that should add one more to the list, and call it good.
There you go. But Defensive Player of the Year in 01. Remember the 2000s All-Decade Team. He's in the Giants Ring of Honor. His number 92 on the Giants is retired, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's he officially ranks as sack leader. He officially ranks 6th in NFL history with 141 and a half career sacks. He also holds the official, like I said, the official sack record is 22 and a half, set in 2001.
I would give that to him if it was if it was a non-Jet.
Yeah, well, I mean,
who had the 22.
Who did he beat? What was that? Who held the record before him? What was that? What was that guy's name?
Mark Mullet.
Mark Mullet Gastineau.
Mark the Stud Gastineau.
Yeah, but I mean, Michael Strahan has done plenty of stuff, post NFL. I mean, obviously, he's just
he's had a heck of a career, and he was really good on TV.
Yeah.
I don't hate the guy. I just think his record is bogus. That's all.
And if he didn't beat a Jet, then you wouldn't have any problem with that either.
If it wasn't a Jet, I wouldn't even care about that.
Yeah. I just want to know who the half a quarterback was.
It was Pepe, the short guy.
It was what's his name? Yeah. Doug Flutie. He sacked Doug Flutie.
It was Doug Flutie. He sacked Doug Flutie. It was 0-1. Yeah, he sucked Doug Flutie that year.
Well, he sacked him twice, and that counted for half.
For half. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, there you go. Number 9, Michael Strahan. Harry, bring us to number 8, please.
And number 8 is Gino Marchetti, who's played so long ago that his Wikipedia picture is a drawing. He played, I guess, from what, in the 50s and into the 60s. He was in the U.S. Army and fought in the Battle of the Bulge as a machine gunner during World War II. Can't make this shit up. So talk about there was no screwing around. Look at that guy.
My God! Yeah, really.
He looked like a defensive lineman.
He was the defense.
Yeah.
He was the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, he played. He was a 2-time NFL champion, an 11-time Pro Bowler. He played for the Dallas Texans as well as the Baltimore Colts. Just unbelievable. He played so long ago that in his rookie season, the Yanks became the Dallas Texans, which then became the Baltimore Colts.
Right.
So he was started as an offensive lineman, and then obviously became a defensive lineman.
Sure.
And was a member of the NFL's 50th anniversary team, 75th anniversary team, and 100th anniversary team, and the 1950s All-Decade team. And those Colts, the teams that he played for on the Colts were just, they sort of reinvented defense in those days.
Sure.
And Forrest Gregg in an interview said, "You ask who is the best, just my opinion. Marchetti was the best all-around player I ever played against." That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
And look, definitely a lot.
He's a guy that you go, what did you do before you became a football player?
I was a machine gunner.
I was a machine gunner in World War II.
At the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah.
So what did you do before you became a football player?
That's right.
I sold ice cream.
I went to college.
like which part of his life is, the better part?
I hooked up with co-eds.
He was a kind of a war hero, or he was a outstanding, maybe the best of all time defensive lineman in the NFL.
Well, he was named the top defensive end of the NFL's first 50 years.
Yeah.
So,
but and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he played both offense and defense most of the time, like almost every game.
Right.
So it's just, 2-time NFL champion, and obviously before Super Bowls, but it's just, and who knows how many more years he would have played, because he came back from the war and then went to Modesto Junior College before finally playing football at the University of San Francisco.
There you go.
14th overall pick by the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
The New York Yanks.
New York Yanks, yeah. And he was part of that Baltimore Colts 58 team that played against the Giants in the greatest game ever played.
Yeah.
And Giants were, I've said it before, Giants were heavily favored in that game. And then the Colts won.
Well, he made the big tackle against Frank Gifford to stop him from first down. And I think he fractured his ankle on that play. And insisted on, I don't think he could play, but he insisted on watching the rest of the historic overtime contest from the sideline rather than getting medical attention.
Right.
It's just a broken ankle.
Yeah.
He's got 2 of them.
He's got another one.
I'm a freaking machine gunner. Put me back in.
Exactly. There you go. Well, there you go, folks. Number 8, Gino Marchetti. Pete, why don't you bring us to number 7?
Of course, after that, everyone else is kind of like, I don't know, what did this guy do? Geez, that guy was number 8? So, number 7, another Cowboy on the list, Randy White. Talk about a man's man. Actually began his career as a linebacker, but was moved to the defensive tackle position, I think maybe the second year of his career, and became just, again, he's on our top 10 list and a lot of other top 10 lists. He also an Iron Man, played 14 seasons from 75 to 88, missed just one game 3 Super Bowl appearances, 6 NFC title games. Also one of 3 NFL defensive linemen to win the Super Bowl MVP. 111 career sacks and just over 1,100 tackles. 9 times All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler. Again, 1-time Super Bowl champion. 1978, he was the NFC Defensive Player of the Year, Hall of Fame class of 94, and the NFL 100 all-time team named to that in 2019. Randy White was just a stud muffin.
Yeah,
him and Ed Jones seem to constantly be beating the crap out of the Giants.
Ed Jones was just too tall.
He was.
So I'm surprised he never got like a nickname about that. Yeah, I mean this was America's team, and these were guys that played when during a time period when I kind of fell in love with the Cowboys. I needed an NFC team, and
this is the time when I was trying to decide if I hated them or the Eagles more.
Here he is in this picture.
I wasn't allowed, according to my dad's rules, I wasn't allowed to be a fan of the Giants because I was already a fan of the Jets.
Yeah.
And they had the cheerleaders.
If you're a Jets fan, you need to have a second team.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean,
you want to watch football.
Exactly.
I was born in '65, so during the Randy White years, I was in my
prime,
my formative teen years, and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders were a big deal. It didn't hurt that Dallas was a good team.
Rocking out the Bachman Turner Overdrive and watching the Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. Holding up Farrah Fawcett's poster. Was
right.
Absolutely. I had Cheryl Teagues.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
That was a good one. I mean, there you
go. I had Phyllis Diller.
Phyllis Diller. Yeah, but that's the new one.
Yes, of course. Same red bathing suit. It actually,
exactly. Yeah, folks, number 7, Randy White. I'll take number 6. Number 6 is Mr. Merlin Olsen. Merlin J. Olsen, to be exact. He was drafted in the NFL draft with the 3rd pick overall in 1962, round 1. And he was drafted in the AFL draft as well. With the 2nd pick overall in 1962. Obviously, he opted for the former. Went to the Rams. 14-time Pro Bowler. 62 through 75 straight. Every year but the last year of his career, he was in the Pro Bowl. 5-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time second-team All-Pro. Won the Burt Bell Award. He was NFL Rookie of the Year in '62. He was a member of the 75th anniversary team, 100th anniversary team, 60s All-Decade team, 70s All-Decade team. His number 74 on the Rams is retired. He just crazy, insane defensive tackle. And member of the Fearsome Foursome, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we get to another member of the Fearsome Foursome. But he's just his 14 Pro Bowls are tied for an NFL record. He just, like I said, he missed the cut in his final season. There you go, Merlin Olsen, guys.
Merlin.
Yeah,
I don't really remember him playing too much, but I do remember him being. I do remember him as an announcer and as a
actor,
strange actor for vaguely religious shows on primetime television. But yeah, he was obviously one of the best, and
he wasn't flashy though. He just went about his business. He didn't run his mouth.
A lot of people back then were not flashy. They were just playing football.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say he was probably.
Yeah,
amongst those people, he was one of the the kind of the quietest. Just he
made Randy White seem flashy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Did his talking on the field.
That's right.
With his play, not with his mouth.
What were we talking before? He was on Little House on the Prairie, Highway to Heaven,
Father Murphy,
Barney Miller.
He had a guest appearance on a couple of Barney Miller.
That's right. He was on Big Bang Theory.
He appeared once on Petticoat Junction.
Really? There you go.
There you go.
Obscure reference number 2, Petticoat Junction.
Can any of us remember if he was he a good actor?
Yeah. He was
okay. Yeah, I can't actually. I don't know if I've ever actually seen him.
He acted for. He was acting for probably 15 years.
He had of course his pretty good long career. So I guess he must have been okay.
Yeah.
So. Then again, I don't know. Maybe we didn't quite have the same standards back then.
I think we had higher standards. Yeah.
I don't know. I see a lot of those old shows, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
Right.
Yeah. I see a lot of the new shows.
I see a lot of new shows
and say the same thing. A lot of the new shows too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there you go, folks. Number 6, Merlin Olsen. Harry, why don't you take us to number 5?
Number 5 is, I didn't know this was his name, but Charles Edward Green, also known as Mean Joe Green of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Part of the famous Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty that won. He was a 4-time Super Bowl champion, 10-time Pro Bowler. And I think just part of, I think the best defensive squad of all time. And he anchored that line, was NFL Man of the Year in 1975, 2 times NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 72 and 74, and was named to the NFL's 75th anniversary team and 100th anniversary team. And I think probably was most famous, obviously, for being on those Super Bowl teams, but also his Coca-Cola commercial, which
absolutely
might be the most famous, one of the most famous commercials of all time. Hey, kid, catch. And
thanks, Mean Joe.
You don't know what it is, look it up. I mean, I think he always hated the nickname Mean Joe Green. He doesn't even really know where it started. But he wasn't really a mean guy. He was just a hell of a player. And he was, I would say he was far less mean than Jack Ham.
He looked mean.
He just looked mean.
He looked mean. And he was an intimidating, 6'4", 280-pound dude who was obviously one of the best of all time, which is why he's so high up on this list. Mm-hmm. But, he played in 181 games, almost 80 sacks, and he did have an interception. So I think if anybody who watched any sort of football in the 70s and early 80s, he was dominating.
Yeah. I mean, and that Coca-Cola commercial wasn't his only acting either. No, he tackled Buford T. Justice's cop car in Smoking the Bandit 2.
He was in the Black Six, which is like a blaxploitation film, and I
don't think I ever saw that one.
He was in a couple of things. Yeah, no, Smoking the Bandit 2. Burt Reynolds pulls in, goes up to Terry. Hey, Terry. Hey, Bandit. And says, I'll tell you who that is. And then he says, Terry Bradshaw says to Joe Green, says, tackle that car. So, and he did. So.
If Smoking the Bandit 2, very
obscure reference number 3.
Much like Caddyshack 2, just doesn't quite live up, but worthwhile watching.
You know what, though? It's worthwhile to watch it once if you've never seen it. But the lemon in that whole series was definitely Smoking the Bandit 3. So,
Electric Boogaloo.
Which one had the elephant in it?
That was 2.
Okay.
2 was
that one was only good because of
the elephant. Dom DeLuise.
Because of Dom DeLuise. Yeah.
Dom DeLuise. Yeah.
All right.
So, anyway. All right. So there you go. We've exhausted that one. But yeah, Joe Green, Mean Joe.
Number 5.
There we go. All right. Pete, bring us to number 4.
Let's take a look at number 4. One of my personal favorites. I don't know what his whole name is, but he's Deacon Jones to you and anyone else for that matter. That's Mr. Deacon Jones, in fact. About 10 years with the Rams, a couple years with San Diego, and final year with the Washington, whatever their name was back in 1974.
Washington, we can't say.
Yeah. 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 67 and 68, 8 times to the Pro Bowl, 8 times an All-Pro, and into the Hall of Fame class of 1980, and on the NFL 100 all-time team named there. So in 2019, last year. So Deacon Jones apparently coined, or at least the legend goes, coined the term sacking the quarterback.
Sure.
Although it was not an official stat when he played, but when they looked back, it became official, and they looked back. Unofficially, he has 173 and a half career sacks. I don't think Flutie was playing back then, but another small quarterback he got half a sack from.
Tarkenton.
There you go.
He was half because he was skinny. That's all.
If you chase down Tarkenton, that's 1.5.
Yeah.
But that would sack. If you're able to catch Tarkenton, then you get a sack and a half for that. But 173 and a half, good enough for third all time. 64 through 68, he averaged over 20 sacks a season during that 5-year stretch, which is insane. Yeah. Very fast, great sideline to sideline movement and speed. And of course, the head slap, which eventually got outlawed by the league, where he would just whack a guy in the side of the head, ring their bell, and then push them out of the way, run over them, throw them down to the ground.
Which he learned from the Three Stooges.
Absolutely.
And listen, it worked. Listen, that's a martial arts move. You slap a guy right on the ear, and you ring that bell. Right. He was just an imposing figure, and pretty much
that was a great defensive line, eh? Oof.
Yeah, and he pretty much deserved every bit of his reputation, and that's one of the reasons why he's number 4.
Absolutely,
Deacon Jones.
The Deacon Jones, and he was. And I said before, Merlin Olsen, who I did neglect to mention before, was actually a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm sorry about that. All these guys are obviously. He was a member of the Fearsome Foursome with the Los Angeles Rams, and it was Merlin Olsen and Deacon Jones and Lamar Lundy and Rosie Greer. And Rosie Greer finished his career with the Rams. He started his career with the Giants in the 50s.
Yeah.
And they, oddly enough, the Fearsome Foursome actually started there with Andy Robustelli and Jim Kakavich and Dick Modzelewski. They were the Fearsome Foursome and the Giants. So I guess Rosie Greer took the moniker with him out to L.A. and called it that. But that line of Greer and Lundy and Olsen and Jones was insane. They were just ridiculously tough. And it also brings us to this too. This was one of my favorite Deacon Jones memories. Is this right here? For those of you listening to the audio podcast, you cannot see the picture. Obviously, this is his guest star appearance on The Odd Couple when he's in a commercial for Multiblade with being directed by Felix, and in it
fastidiously directed by Felix.
Fastidiously directed by Felix, played by Tony Randall. This was good. If you're watching this or even listen, go on YouTube, Google Odd Couple Multiblade commercial.
And for any of you any of you Gen Zers that may accidentally stumble across this, the television was a box that showed moving pictures on it that you could not put in your pocket and bring everywhere with you. And there was only 7 channels, and you had to watch it at the time it was broadcast.
Right.
Google it, look it up. I'm sure there's a TikTok video explaining it.
It's pretty cool. It had sound and everything.
I thought it was cool. It used to be made. They used to be made out of wood.
It was the talkies. It was
right.
It was good.
They used to be 4 foot wide and 3 foot tall with a 16-inch screen.
You couldn't even move them around your room. They were so big. And,
right.
They were a piece of furniture in your living room.
Right.
And you had one of them.
Back at a time when things traveled through the air instead of over the wire.
That's right.
Exactly.
You can now find old televisions being ironic fish tanks at any coffee shop in Williamsburg.
Exactly. So, well, there you go. That has brought us all of number 4, Deacon Jones. I'll take number 3. Number 3 is Mr. Alan Page. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of our first Old Balls segments.
I think he might have been the inaugural.
I think he might have been.
Look at that! Look at that face mask! Look at that!
So he was actually the second. I just looked. John Hanna was number 1.
Oh, that's right. The Hog. How could I forget?
The Hog was number 1. Yeah, Alan Page was number 2. Alan Cedric Page, born August 7th, 1945. He was drafted in with the 15th pick in the first round of the 1967 draft by the Minnesota Vikings. Played most of his career with the Vikings. Played the last few years of his career with the Chicago Bears. A 9-time Pro Bowler. 6-time first team All Pro, 3-time second team All Pro. He's NFL MVP in 71. We said he was one of 2 defensive players that were the MVP, him and Mr. LT. He's a two-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 71 and 73. NFC Player of the Year in 71, two-time NFC Defensive Player of the Year in 70 and 71. NFL champion in 69. They lost the Super Bowl. Member of the 100th anniversary team, the 70s All-Decade team, and the Vikings Ring of Honor. Is number 88 in the Vikings, is retired. And also a member of the Pro Football and the College Football Hall of Fame. He was a member of the Purple People Eaters. They were just an insane bunch of crazy good defense back in the late 60s, early 70s for Minnesota. Minnesota went to 4 Super Bowls, and not consecutively, but they went to 4 Super Bowls. They lost all 4 of them back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the Purple People Eaters and Alan Page was a big part of all of that, winning. But he's definitely in the conversation for one of the greatest defensive tackles of all times. He has 173 career sacks, even though they weren't counting. It's unofficial. They weren't counting sacks at the time. It would rank far and away the best ever for a defensive tackle if sacks were counted as a stat during that era. But it would place him third on the all-time list behind Bruce Smith and Reggie White. Oddly enough, behind those two. Remember that. But again, he's only one of 2 defensive players to win the NFL MVP. But and he would go on to serve as Associate Justice in Minnesota Supreme Court from 93 to 2015.
Yeah. Pretty outstanding human being all around.
Ridiculously outstanding human being. Yes, absolutely. So, well, there you go. Number 3, Alan Cedric Page. Harry, bring us to number 2, please.
Number 2 is Reginald Howard White, also known as Reggie White, defensive end for, does anybody know his first pro team?
I do.
The Memphis Showboats. Yes, Reggie White started in the USFL, then went to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, he won his one and only Super Bowl, and rounded out his career with the Carolina Panthers, who I believe are still a professional football team.
I think they are.
Yeah. He was a 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 8-time All-Pro, first team, 13-time Pro Bowler, 2-time NFL sack leader, 3-time NFC Defensive Player of the Year, and part of the 75th and 100th anniversary all-time team. I think he was maybe 1 or 2 points away from being number 1 on this list, and he was
2 points
just dominating over the course of his career. Unfortunately, died relatively young from heart arrhythmia and sleep apnea. Died in his sleep, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's too bad. But he was obviously one of the best, which is why he's so high on this list. And I glanced at a couple of other people's lists online, and he was number 1 on almost all of them. Why we decided he wasn't number 1, I don't know. I just think the number 1 that we chose was a better player. But it's splitting hairs. Either one of these guys could have been number 1, I think.
He was number 1 on my list. Not the number 1 was number 2 on my list. So.
Yeah, and I think he was 2 on yours and my list, right, Pete? 198 sacks, forced 33 fumbles. He was dominating, just dominating, and a big reason why the Packers returned to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl that first time.
He's a master of the swim move.
Yeah,
just.
Yeah, and
you see those arms coming, and
the forearm shiver.
Oh, the forearm shiver, yeah,
and the rip move where you come up, and I mean LT did that better, but
yeah,
he was also very good at the Macarena.
I think he was
get a lot of
part
out of it, though.
I think he was part of the actual invention of that.
On the Memphis Showboats, he used that quite extensively and led the league in sacks. So.
Yeah, I think he.
I think we saw them play once with the Generals.
The 1 and 2 on our list, I guess, you could really make a case for either one. Right. They're interchangeable as far as good cases to make either one of them number 1 or number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
crazy. Well, there you go. That's our number 2 today, Reggie White, the Minister of Defense. So, Pete, bring us to number 1.
That brings us to number 1. And as I said, Reggie White could have been number 1 easily. I don't think any of us would argue with that. And as Harry said, was number 1 on a bunch of lists. But for our list, the way we do it, Bruce Smith came up as the number 1 guy. And listen, you can look at numbers. The all-time sack leader with 200. Has the most seasons with double-digit sacks, which is 13. Buffalo Bill from 85 to 99. How many Super Bowls did he win? None. But wasn't for a lack of effort.
Went to 4 in a row.
Yeah, went there. Listen, that's which is way more of an accomplishment, I think, that team ever really gets credit for, to do that 4 times in a row. But 11 times an All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowler, 3 times NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Hall of Fame class of 2009, the NFL 100 all-time team. And listen, I think that reason you might give the edge to Bruce Smith is played most of his career in a 3-4.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot of sacks there, but
that's meant to highlight the linebackers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And he was, when you think about those Buffalo teams and you think about those Super Bowl teams and the offense and Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas, and
they had a good defense. They had a great defense.
Right. That's a big reason they were there, is because of their defense. And Bruce Smith was the star of that show defensively. So, it just 279 games played. Actually had 2 interceptions, 43 forced fumbles in his career. Right. So, this is a guy who just didn't tackle people and didn't just sack the quarterback. He made stuff happen. He was disruptive. You always had to account for him. You almost always had to double team him. Yeah.
Really fast, really quick. And I would say, other than Lawrence Taylor, he was one of those guys who quarterbacks did not want to see on the other side of the field.
No.
And he was a game changer as a defensive lineman in a 3-4. He was a game changer, and that's rare. But he was the other reason why I put him a little bit ahead of Reggie White is he was an incredible athlete. And I think he did a lot more laterally on the field, as well as being a hell of a pass rusher, than any defensive lineman I've ever seen. He was that good of an athlete.
He was kind of the guy that when there was a broken play or a running back would get stopped the head his way, but get stopped, turn reverse field, and it looked like he was going to break it out. Bruce Smith would be chasing him down.
Yeah.
He was laterally from across the field. He moved like a linebacker.
He did. He looked like a giant linebacker flying through the air.
You're right. He was an exceptional athlete.
Absolutely. And I always remember, 2 things about that, like the 1990 Super Bowl with the Giants, their Buffalo's first one that they went to. You had Lawrence Taylor and Bruce Smith on the field at the same time. Not at the same time, but in the same game.
Yeah,
I don't think they were in the same time.
And if Marv Levy came to his wits 3 seconds earlier in that game, it might not have turned out the way it was. But,
yeah, this is true. But the one thing I always remember too is Jeff Hostetler when he was sacked in the end zone for the safety by Bruce Smith.
Yeah,
Bruce Smith was going for that ball.
Oh, yeah.
And he was going to rip that ball out, and that would have been a touchdown for
Hostetler. Held on to it with one hand.
Hostetler grabbed that ball and wasn't letting go. And that right there is why I always say that, and I love the man. I love Phil Simms. I think he's one of the best Giant quarterbacks of all time. One of. But Hostetler doesn't play in that game, and Phil Simms plays. That ball is stripped. And Buffalo has a touchdown,
and everything leading up to that. The whole, the Giants, the personality of that team changed to just this. We're going to beat the shit out of you. But there was Otis, and remember Hostetler, and I think it was the first round, or maybe it was the NFC Championship game, just literally sticking his head into Richard Dent's stomach and driving him into the end zone to score a touchdown. That just doesn't happen.
No. Yeah, that was the.
And I'll say this about Bruce Smith. In the Nintendo Tecmo Bowl series of games, particularly the Tecmo Super Bowl.
There you go.
Bruce Smith was one of those guys that would always, like, there were just like 6 or 7 plays in a row where you would be on offense and you'd be playing the Bills, as you playing the Jets a lot as I did. And Bruce Smith would immediately discard whoever was blocking him, throw him to the sideline, and run faster than any wide receiver in the entire game and sack the quarterback.
Yes.
Multiple times in a row. It was super frustrating. And so that's how much the Japanese game makers respected Bruce Smith. He was one of those guys.
He's huge in Japan.
Huge in Japan.
Yeah.
Still is.
He was a foil in video games as well as
as
on
we
the
all
There's a
are.
chain of steakhouses in Tokyo.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, Brucey's. I
thought it was
believe.
laundromats.
Steakhouse, laundromat, whatever.
Steakhouse and laundromat.
Well, it's both. You put your laundry in,
Yeah, and
and then you go to the other side. There's a counter, and you have a steak.
That's
where
right.
You
your
have a
clothes
steak
are
and
washed.
you go back and get your clothes.
Bruce Smith, not to be confused with the drummer for Public Image Limited, who's also a Bruce Smith worth checking into. But
He doesn't have as many sacks, though.
And he was a terrible football player.
He was a horrible football player, but man, that guy, his base foot is pretty solid.
Pretty solid. Yeah. Well,
He's a
there you
much better drummer than this Bruce Smith.
Yeah.
This is
not
true.
not nearly as big in Japan.
Not as big. No, not at all. Korea, a little bit.
Very much so, especially back in the early '80s. Yes.
Exactly. Well, there you go, folks. Number 1 defensive lineman of all time on our list, Bruce Smith. All right. Well, there you have it. That's our list for this week. And that should bring us to our next segment of Old Balls. Old Balls. Harry, why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls is?
You know, in doing some research on the history of defensive linemen, I could not come up with anybody better than this gentleman for Old Balls. And here's why. We did not have one nose guard on this list.
No,
for good reason.
All tackles. And...
Not a glamorous position. Okay. But today's Old Balls is none other than Mr. Curly Culp. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, his name was Curly Culp. And why I bring it up is that he was sort of responsible for being the first nose guard who actually lined up directly over the center, which led to the creation of the 3-4 defense scheme. And why not do this in a Super Bowl? And he actually played in Super Bowl IV against the Vikings. Hank Scram, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, lined him up directly over the Minnesota Vikings center. And it was a big reason why they were able to shut down their running game. And this led to what became really the most popular defensive lineup for years to come, which was the 3-4, which really gave birth to, I think, 2 generations of defensive ends and linebackers. But the unsung heroes of these defensive lines were the nose guards. And Curly Culp was one of the best to ever play this position. He was a 6-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl IV, an AFL champion in 1969. And he was Defensive Player of the Year in 1975. Went on to play for not only the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Houston Oilers, and then for 2 years with the Detroit Lions. And I won't spend too much time on it, but he was kind of an undersized guy. He wasn't super big. He was only 6'1", which I know doesn't seem small, but is for a defensive lineman. But Jim Otto of the Raiders, who's one of the best offensive linemen of all time, and maybe the best center of all time, simply said Curly Culp was perhaps the strongest man I ever lined up against. And I don't know. Look at him. If you can see this picture, that when I think of a nose guard, there it is. He's right there. Yep. Curly Culp, this week's Old Balls.
He was also a NCAA heavyweight champion in wrestling.
He was
in college.
He was.
Yeah. Member Pro Football Hall of Fame too.
That's right.
I have to admit, I never heard of him before today. But that's kind of goes with that position. Well, and that's the anchor of the defense, really.
Yeah, and that Kansas City Chiefs line had a bunch of really good players on it. They were pretty groundbreaking in how the defense really was geared. And Buck Buchanan, I think, was a defensive tackle or defensive end who was lined up with Curly. And yeah, he had a hell of a career with both the Chiefs and the Oilers. Didn't play a super long time, but played long enough to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
And long enough to be an old Bulls.
Old enough to be an old Bull. Still alive. He's 74 years old. So Curly, wherever you are, congratulations. You'll be getting your old Bulls commemorative mug in the mail.
So it's not a bumper sticker anymore.
Old Bulls commemorative yoga pants.
Yes, old Bulls. Yeah, well, that's only if you beat the picks. You have to be in the picks.
You have to be in the picks.
That's right. We can't just be going willy-nilly with too many old yoga pants.
No, you can't do that.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Curly Culp does not even know what yoga pants are.
I would probably think not. No.
And for that, I applaud him.
And I would assume that he would destroy yoga pants in much the same way he destroyed opposing centers.
Oh,
pretty much.
Let's keep this PG-13.
There you go. Well, there you go, folks. That's this week's Old Balls, Curly Culp.
Old Balls.
There you go. All right, folks. Should we move on to a little hot stove? There's a couple things to talk about.
Did anything happen?
Well, the Mets got a few players. They got they signed a catcher last week. $40.6 million for 4 years, James McCann. There's been a lot of talk that there, some people are upset that the Mets didn't wait on JT Realmuto. But Realmuto is going to cost so much more money, and he's going to want a longer contract. And you know what? I mean, the last couple of years, and granted, it's only a couple of year sample size, if you will, but last couple of years, McCann and Realmuto have had pretty much similar numbers, and you got Alvarez waiting in the wings, so coming up in the minors. So I don't have a problem. Me personally, do not have a problem with this signing. I think it's a good move.
Good solid catcher. Good move for the Mets. Leaves them some additional room for other players. As long as it's not DJ LeMahieu, I'll be happy for them.
There you go. And they got their new GM too, Jared Porter. He's a disciple of Theo Epstein.
Curly Culp is their new GM.
Curly Culp is the new GM.
He should be their strength coach.
He's their inspirational, motivational speaker.
The new nose guard for the Mets.
McCann's a good get for them.
McCann's a good pick for them.
We talked about this. It's not just about spending money; it's about spending money wisely,
sure,
and in the right places. And Cohen is not the guy who's going to go out and just blow the doors off and have a $300 million payroll.
He's the wealthiest owner in baseball, but and I think in pro sports too, actually. But he's not going. He's wealthy for a reason. He's not going to go out and just dump all of his money on a bunch of people that may or may not play well together. He's going to do it wisely, and he wants to build now, and he wants to build for the future too. So a lot of this is going to come from the minors and building the right farm system and everything else. But he's putting the right pieces in. Is starting to put the right pieces in for winning now as well as later. So
the question I have is: are the Yankees any closer, or have they even made a final decision about the aforementioned DJ LeMahieu?
Yeah.
Rumor is that both sides want to work something out, and that it's the Yankees' number one priority to re-sign him. So I think it's just a matter of time.
I think what we really think. Yeah, because I question whether that's really – because if you look at Brian Cashman, and what he's said is that he doesn't just want to build a team that's going to win now. He's always the what's the famous quote? It's not about winning a championship; it's about winning championships.
Well, it's been a while, Brian.
It has, but in other words, on one hand, you could say, look, do we all agree that DJ LeMahieu is the best player on the Yankees? Right?
I do.
Okay, so. When is it really ever a helpful thing to get rid of your best player or to let your best player go? You could look at it that way, right? It's probably not going to be good for you to win. However, as a long-term prospect, given his age and, how many more good years are you going to get out of him and what you're going to pay him is, if your philosophy is we want to build for the future as well as for right now, then maybe it's not the best thing to sign DJ LeMahieu to a long-term big money deal.
Well, I think with that argument, I think it's not a good idea to re-sign Gary Sanchez to a long-term deal. With that mindset, it wasn't a good idea to sign Giancarlo Stanton to a long-term deal. Look, LeMahieu is not that old. And if you think the Yankees are playing for 4 or 5 years from now, the time for the Yankees to win is now. Aaron Judge is in his prime. DJ LeMahieu's got 2, 3, 4 more years left. They'll sign some sort of deal where they'll have an out after 3 years, but they'll be able to extend it a little longer should both sides be interested. And that's all you could really ask for. I think he's a stabilizing force on that Yankees team. And I think he's the most clutch player, even in the postseason. I mean, he's proven that over and over again. He's also incredibly versatile, which is great because the Yankees have a lot of young or not so young infielders, especially, that aren't so great defensively. So you need somebody who is defensively versatile to make up for some of the lack of defense that you have around the Yankees infield. And other than Gleyber Torres and Aaron Judge, I think he's the one person I would make sure I keep on this team. Obviously, the Yankees need pitching. I think the Yankees could go almost any other direction with anybody else. I like who they have in Voit at first base. I would love to see LeMahieu be sort of anchored at second base. I like the way that their infield is looking. I think their outfield is fine as well. The Yankees need pitching, and they need to make sure that they're keeping players who are not strikeout and home run hitters in their lineup because they don't have a ton of them. They don't have the old school Yankees lineup of guys who are going to work the count and make the pitchers work and get on base playing small ball. And DJ LeMahieu is really one of the only guys on that team who can do that.
Right.
And I would argue he was, for the last 2 seasons, he's been the best leadoff hitter in baseball.
Yeah, nobody else on the Yankees is playing small ball like he does. So I mean,
and he has power.
Yeah, and he can hit for power too. He can hit for average, and he can hit for power.
Yeah, and how many guys can play three infield positions at an all level?
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think it'd be foolish to let him go.
Yeah.
I just just kind of look at what that philosophy supposedly is, and he doesn't quite fit in. But I don't see how they really have that much. Really have a better prospect of winning without him.
Right.
And look, if you get, you're right, he's not that old, but you're going to get a certain number of years out of him, depending on how long they're going to sign him for. Well, they're going to sign him for another 5 years, maybe.
No, he's 32.
So if you get those championships out of him, right, the theory in the first couple of years of the contract, then all right, you're going to pay him a lot in the last couple of years. But if nothing else, you would think if for whatever reason he breaks down in the field, he can still be a great DH.
Sure.
He's 1 year older, less than 1 year older than Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton's 31.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Should Giancarlo Stanton be the measure for anything?
Well, but when you're talking about people that have committed to it, I mean, Gary Sanchez is 28, so he's 4 years older than Sanchez.
Yeah. And
the Yankees need to win now. And
you think that was a good move with tendering Sanchez for $5 million?
I don't. I think Sanchez is the equivalent of Daniel Jones for the Yankees.
So he's not going to play. He's not going to be a good quarterback for the Yankees.
He might be a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. But no,
have we seen the best Gary Sanchez will ever?
If the catcher is the quarterback for a baseball team, he's one. He's. There's a reason why their best pitcher doesn't want him behind the plate when he's pitching.
Well, you know what? I mean, Cashman even said that Higashioka has a chance to compete to be an everyday guy. Okay. So, I mean, what does that tell you? You know, tender Sanchez and say that his backup has a chance to be.
I think the Yankees realize that there's not much trade value in Gary Sanchez. I think 2 years ago you could have got something for him. I think they've realized there's not much there, and I don't dislike Gary Sanchez, but in looking at him objectively, ever since he came up as the next big thing, you sort of knew, hey, he's able to hit some monstrous home runs, and yes, occasionally he hits one that's very timely, but he's a horrible defensive catcher. I'm not just saying that to be mean. He's a horrible defensive catcher, and what did he hit the year before? He hit 186, I think. And what did he hit last year? 214?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
so to get back to your original question, Pete, yes, you re-signed DJ LeMahieu.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
And the thing about Sanchez is he doesn't seem to be able to separate the defense from the offense. That's what people are saying. One really affects the other, and that's not a good recipe if you're a baseball player.
If you're a 28-year-old catcher and all of a sudden you're changing the way your catching stance because you can't keep the ball in front of you,
right,
then that's just, and he did better. He did better, but he's maybe the third best defensive catcher on the Yankees when they had three, on their roster. I think the Yankees need to get more pitching. And if that means giving up a few of these big name so-called offensive stars that they have, I'm all for it. But the ones that I'm really sold on is I like Luke Voit. I think he's got some work to do defensively, but I like him as their everyday first baseman. I think I would love to see LeMahieu anchored at second base. I think Torres he's got his weaknesses in the field, but he's going to be a perennial all-star. And they've got a couple options at third base, which is what I also like. And their outfield with, I'm sure you'll still see what's his name out there playing, left or right field this year along with Judge and Stanton. So I think the Yankees lineup isn't the problem. I think the Yankees need hitters who are better in the clutch, and they need pitching.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're going to give up on Tanaka. So what's their plan?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Bauer?
No.
Could they sneak in?
No, Bauer's
going I'm hearing rumors about the Dodgers and Bauer now. I'm not hearing them. I'm reading them.
You're reading them.
The Dodgers are an interesting team.
And it's being written by LA sports writers is what you're hearing.
Well, but the Dodgers are going all in. And they sort of putted around for years there too.
They got a taste of victory finally, and they want more.
They got a taste of victory, and if it's another COVID-shortened year, then they have a chance.
Here's another reason why that's a possibility. Exactly what you were just saying. There's been a report now. Major League Baseball is looking to delay the 2021 season till at least May. Mm-hmm. And then they whatchamacallit, they were an American League owner who apparently is nameless. I was going to say it shall remain nameless. It's not even written here, so I can't even say it. Says, is quoted as saying, I don't see any way spring training starts in February. Zero chance of that. He says, I don't care if we play 140 games, 120 games, or 80 games. We have to make sure that everyone is safe and do this right. So they're plan on spring training not happening immediately. Pitchers and catchers reporting in February. And the season's not going to start on time. I don't think it's going to be July like it was this year, but
But there's no reason for them to really rush into worrying about any number of games. I mean, as long as it's more than 60, right? It would 60 games again this year wouldn't sit well with the fans, but they could easily do 100 certainly, and I think people would be. In other words, they've shown that yes, people are going to be so desperate for it that even if you cut the season down to 60 games, they're going to come back,
right?
And so if you do 100 games, they'll be fine with that, or maybe 120, or maybe even 90. Then fans will still come back. So they don't have to. They're not in that same position where there was this kind of this. You got to get out there. You got to get out there now. You got to get going, because if you have too few games, everyone's going to just reject you.
Right.
Not really the case. They were down to 60 games, and people welcomed them with open arms.
Right.
So they're not in a rush to get back.
And people are going to be in the stands too. I mean that's another thing. It depends on where you are too. Obviously, because football, some stadiums are having fans and some stadiums are not.
Well, I think Major League Baseball had more of it. Major League Baseball, though, I think handled it much better in that they had rules that were for everywhere.
Right.
They didn't allow it to be up to each individual owner or state rules, which I think is good. But you've got, you're going to have the ability to have more fans in the stands, maybe not packed houses, but the vaccine is rolling out, and
sure.
I would think that come January, it's going to be rolling out even more.
Right.
So who knows, maybe by July, we're at a situation where you might be able to have 25,000 people in the stands, or there might be a system where get tested and you can go into the game. If everybody's getting tested, then maybe they'll put 35,000, depending on maybe they'll have a percentage of capacity, let's say. Right. So, that might.
I think with the way in which the vaccine will be rolled out, it is a 2-part vaccine and there is 4 weeks in between. So I think you're probably looking at the second month of baseball season before we have any sort of, consensus vaccine immunization.
Right.
I think they have to play it by ear. But I think you could start to see some fans.
Everything is speculation at this point. We'll see what happens.
And the last thing you want
last year, they'll take any, if you have 10,000 people in the stands for every game, that's better than you had last year. So.
And maybe that'd be a good way of getting people to take the vaccine, is saying you have to prove that you had the vaccine before you can come into the stadium.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's probably.
If you do that for NASCAR, that certainly bring up the vaccine rates. And
well, are you suggesting that anti-vaxxers are NASCAR-loving rednecks?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
All right.
Nope. They're across the board.
On that note, folks, that's our MLB report for this week.
Get you.
Across the board rednecks? Is that what you're saying?
The Yankees might not have a pitcher, but they'll definitely have 1 or 2 vaccines.
There you go. And speaking of the National Basketball Association,
maybe that instead of having like a bat day, you could have vaccine day.
Vaccine day. Everybody, the first 10,000 fans that show up get the
commemorative vaccine bobblehead.
Well, listen, if they can, come up with an oral vaccine, like
that's what they're using Dodger Stadium for now, is for COVID testing. So you might as well just, yeah.
And a special guest performance by the new rapper Covey D.
That's right. That's right. I don't know.
First 10,000 fans get the COVID vaccine.
But you can't go to the game for another month and a half.
That's right.
Come back for the second one.
You could show up, get the vaccine this week, and a month later you can come get the second one and go into the game.
That's right.
Right. Well, it'll be determined. You'll know whether to buy those World Series tickets or not.
There you go.
I get the vaccine. We can go to the series now.
Well, you know what? I mean, based on our logic, if there's another if it is another shortened season next year, the Dodgers are going to win. So
yeah, that's right.
That's right. So, well, the team with the most vaccines wins.
There you go. All right. Well, NBA's kicking off next week, huh?
22nd, right?
22nd.
Yeah.
22nd. What do you think? Who looks good? We won't even get into specifics of teams, and I mean, there's been some decent play in the preseason so far. I've seen a couple of highlights of some decent.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think the Lakers have a really good chance of winning.
Is that really that long of a limb?
It's a pretty short limb.
It's a short limb.
I mean, I'm not sure the loss of Dwight Howard isn't going to hurt the Lakers in the playoffs, but there's no team that's and there's so many teams in the West that seem to have fallen apart. Like, can the Houston Rockets offseason get any crazier? James Harden just looks like he just doesn't want to play. It's insane. I mean, the deal that he signed, and now 2 years into it, he's just like, trade me.
Well, my question is, does he really know what he wants?
No, he never does. He's just keeps.
You would think if he had somewhere that he wanted to go, he would let the Houston Rockets know that, and maybe let the team that he wants to go to know that, and then at least there would be some sort of talks. But it's all speculative deals, whether it's the Nets or people are talking about Philly, right. Wherever else. I don't know. Does he want to even get out of the West? I might think that he would want to. He might be better off.
It's his first choice. I think he's said it is Brooklyn, and but I don't know how they make that work.
I don't think you can have KD and Kyrie and James Harden all on the same team. And KD's not going anywhere.
It's gonna be hard enough with KD and Kyrie.
I don't know, but they're friends. They wanted to play together.
Yeah, but they're friends, fine, and they wanted it, but it's still two personalities.
You're friends, but if somebody says, Oh, I thought the best I could get was Kyrie as my playmate, but now I can have James Harden.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'd take James Harden.
Yeah.
To me, more interesting than who's going to be good is Antetokounmpo signing a 5-year deal worth slightly more than $250 million with a B dollar.
With a B.
Yeah.
B
slightly more than the entire GDP of Brazil. Yes,
exactly.
But my question is, is anybody else really going to want to go to Milwaukee? Well, he can't win a championship by himself.
Well, they signed what's his name in the offseason, which I think is a big upgrade for them. I think the answer is yes.
But I mean, I'm talking about, and I know who you're referring, and I can't remember his name either. But he's not a superstar.
No.
I mean, who's going to be the other?
That wasn't a max.
Who's going to be the other superstar that you kind of seem to need to win these days? Yeah. Who's going to want to go to Milwaukee and sign a long-term deal? And James Harden.
I'm going to say. I mean, the Lakers are going to be there. I mean, Lakers are favored to win. Lakers are favored to win. I'm going to go out on a limb. My pick. I mean, if we're doing this, we're picking prior to the season start next week. I'm going to say Milwaukee. I mean. Lakers are favored right now. Milwaukee's in second. The Nets are actually the third favored, in third place, if you will, ahead of your Clippers there, Pete.
Your Clippers are better at basketball slightly than football. But my point is, who's going to want to go to Milwaukee and try and win a championship there? I don't know. It's just not a destination.
I think a lot of players, other than the Lakers, where do people want to go? Okay, so you got Kevin Durant and Kyrie to go to Brooklyn. Okay, that seems like maybe another. They have Drew Holiday. They've signed Torrey Craig. Their starting five. Their starting five has 4 All-Stars.
Right.
With Chris Middleton. They picked up Bobby Portis from the Knicks, who's going to be good on their second team. I think the Bucks are a better team than they were last year. Do they beat the Lakers? No, nobody's beating the Lakers right now.
You're probably right. I'm just, for some reason, it's just like sticking in my craw there. I'm thinking.
I think everybody would love that.
Right. By the way, as a quick aside of this list of who's favored to win, so forth and so on, who do you think is last on the list? Dead last.
Either the New York Knicks or the Detroit Pistons.
It would be the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are just above them. The Pistons are above the Timberwolves. So,
we got that to look forward to.
There you go.
After a 5-11 Giants season, we go right into a New York Knicks season of excitement and.
Listen, they got to rebuild. They got to play defense. They got to play hard-nosed New York Knicks basketball.
They're going to play. They're going to play 1990s Knicks basketball in 2021.
There you go. Well, I mean, they would win in the
90s. Wouldn't given what the product's been the last X number of years, wouldn't you take that at this point?
I watched the first preseason game, and I'll be honest with you, I liked what I saw.
I liked what I saw in the first preseason game. I didn't like as much the second preseason game, but the first one was pretty good.
Hey, Tibby's got him working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be the. This is how odd this could be. I'm going to be the Knicks defender this year.
All right.
I mean,
I could end up defending the Knicks.
I think the team to look out for is Miami again, and I don't think they're done moving people, but I think the Bucks are the team to beat in the East. The Bucks in Miami. I think Toronto took a step back. I think Boston took a step back, and we'll see how Brooklyn does.
I think Brooklyn, having no history with those two players playing together and a limited history with Kyrie last year because of the injuries and stuff,
and a first-time head coach.
Yeah,
first-time head coach.
Yeah, and a neophyte head coach. They got a lot of things to work out. They got a lot of question marks, but I think at the end they'll. I would bet.
I think Kevin Durant's a difference maker. I think the Clippers will have a better playoff run this year. I think it's the Clippers and the Lakers in the West, and the Nuggets.
The Clippers got rid of their coach, who's
Right.
blown the most, being up 3-0 or 3-1 or whatever leads in NBA history. So, man, we'll see how much that was the problem, and how much the problem was, playoff P or whatever his name is, who never performed in the playoffs.
Right.
Paul George, or is it George Ball? No, it's Paul George or George Ball, whatever his name is. We'll see how much he was the problem, and how much Doc Rivers was the problem. And don't count out Philly.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think there's a lot to figure out there too. I mean, don't count out the Nuggets. They did lose Torrey Craig and Jerami Grant and Mason Plumlee, which I think were big parts of the team, especially Torrey Craig and Grant defensively. But with Jokic and Murray, I think last year is going to go a long way with them. And
it's tough.
They need one more player. They need, again, they're much like the Bucks. They need that one other player.
Yeah.
And
what do we think of the Warriors? They got Steph, but Clay, no Clay.
Yeah.
So what are they?
They'll win. They'll win 45 games if it's a regular season.
They're not going to be a powerhouse like in the past, though.
I just don't think with just Steph. I mean, I wouldn't want to play him in the playoffs, but I also don't think they have enough. They've lost some big men in the years past, and I mean, how many more years can Draymond do the Draymond thing? It's getting old.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one player the Nuggets, need. If the Nuggets could add, what's his name as a shooting guard once he gets healthy, then they're a team that can challenge the Lakers, but they're just missing that third player.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an interesting season, and it all starts next week. So we're definitely going to be looking at that. That's for sure. And maybe even going forward, we'll have some NHL talk.
There's hockey, huh?
There's hockey.
You betcha.
It's coming up. But it's going to be fun. And so stay tuned. And we're going to have a lot of interesting top 10 lists once we get through the rest of the regular season.
What's our next top 10?
The next top 10 list is going to be defensive backs.
Ooh.
Defensive backs.
Are we gonna get the punters eventually?
Absolutely.
Are we doing kickers, or are we doing kickers and
top
then
10
punters?
Well, long snappers and then holders.
Top 10 water boys.
Top 10 sideline nets for kicking nets.
What do they call the when you're kicking off, the guy who's all the way on the outside?
The gunner.
Top
10 gunners. Top 10 gunners.
Well,
we'll pick apart different special teams positions.
Special teams would be interesting.
Well, top returners would be. Yeah, I think that would be a legitimate category.
I knew my number one is with
that's pretty.
Leon
Bright. Absolutely. and his affectionate nickname to those who know him, not so.
Yeah. He was committed.
He was
committed, man. I was like, don't do it. Don't put that hand up. Yes. Bam.
Well, you gotta love it.
All right, guys.
So we'll do defensive backs next week, and we'll go from there. Folks, want to thank everybody for watching the show, and for those of you listening to the podcast, thanks for listening to us. Don't forget to visit our website, www.logaroom.com. That's LAGERROM.com. Please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Locker Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And for those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you'll never miss a show again. Thanks for following along with us. Have a great weekend. Check out all the games. Remember, we got Saturday football this week. We'll see what our picks turn out to be, and we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care. Cheers.
Ciao.
Peace.
Talking to a cat.